There is a special kind of stillness in the red glow of Mars. Each night when it rises above the horizon, it looks less like a planet and more like an ember, a slow burning coal suspended in the dark. Its light doesn't shout, it barely even flickers. It simply hums, softly, as if it remembers a story from the ancient past and is patient enough to wait until we're calm enough to hear it. Welcome to AstraFlow. Here, science drifts like starlight, and curiosity becomes calm. Tonight, let your thoughts slow down, your breathing find its rhythm, and your mind float through wonder. Before we begin, I'd love to know where you're listening from. Are you lying in bed under city lights, or watching the stars from somewhere quiet? Tell me in the comments. It's always peaceful to imagine the AstraFlow community scattered across the world, drifting together through the same sky. And if this calm journey brings you peace, you can gently support AstraFlow by liking this video or subscribing. It helps this little corner of the cosmos keep glowing. Now let's begin tonight's voyage into the quiet story of 50 relaxing facts about Mars. Mars has always been a place where imagination drifts. Long before telescopes, long before orbiters and rovers, people looked up at that soft red point and felt something familiar. Not fear, not danger, but a curious sense of recognition, as if that dim ember in the sky was a distant cousin to Earth, a world shaped by storms and silence, ice and stone, time and patience. And when we look closer, we find a planet that is quiet in all the ways our world is loud. No oceans roaring, no forests whispering, no storms rolling across continents with thunderous steps. Mars is the world of gentle winds, of dust drifting slowly across calm plains, of sunsets that glow blue against red sand. It's a place where everything moves at half speed, where change measures itself not in years, but in ages. Tonight we'll drift through 50 soft, soothing truths about this quiet neighbour of ours. 50 little details that reveal Mars not as a harsh or hostile world, but as a world at rest, a landscape sculpted by time and silence. Some facts will be scientific, some will be poetic, all will be gentle. As you listen, let each fact settle like a warm breath in the mind. You don't need to remember them. They're not here to fill your thoughts, but to loosen them, guiding them into that drifting state where curiosity becomes tranquility. Just let the imagery move at its own slow rhythm. Dunes shifting under quiet winds, frost blooming on red slopes, tiny moons gliding softly overhead. Mars is far away, but its calm is near, close enough to drift into your breathing, close enough to soften the edges of the day, close enough to lull you towards sleep, like an ember glowing in the corner of a dark room. Let's step toward its horizon together. The red world is waiting, quiet, patient, and full of wonder. What does it truly mean for something to be far away? When we look at Mars from here, a glowing ember suspended in a dark ocean, the mind tries to measure the distance in numbers, millions of kilometers, months of travel, cold space stretching silently between us. But distance isn't always about measurement. Sometimes distance is simply a feeling, a gentle reminder that something can be distant and familiar at the same time. When you look at Mars, shimmering softly above the horizon, does it feel far to you? Or does it feel strangely close, as if some quiet part of your memory recognizes it? There's something about that dusty, glowing world that invites daydreaming. Something about its steady glow that feels less like a warning and more like a whisper that says, "You've never been here, but you understand me." And maybe that's the question worth drifting with tonight. How can a world so distant feel so deeply connected to our imagination? How can a planet wrapped in cold wind and ancient stone evoke such warmth in the human mind? When we close our eyes and imagine Mars, we don't picture danger or emptiness. Instead, we picture horizons stretching quietly under a thin blue sunset, We imagine dunes glowing red beneath a pale sky. We imagine footsteps, soft, slow, unhurried, sinking into fine rust-coloured dust. It's not a hostile landscape we dream of. It's a peaceful one, a world with enough silence to hold our thoughts. Perhaps distance becomes smaller when imagination becomes larger. Perhaps Mars feels close because we've carried it in our stories for so long. It has been in our myths, in our telescopes, in our art, in our childhood wonders, and each time we gazed at it, we added another thread to the quiet tether between our world and that one. There's a softness in thinking about a place that has never known human footsteps, a world untouched by cities, by noise, by the constant rhythms of life on Earth. Mars has had billions of years to rest undisturbed beneath its cold sky. And when we let our thoughts drift toward it, that calm seems to flow back toward us, like a long, slow breath exhaled across the void. So maybe the question isn't, how far is Mars from Earth? Maybe the real question is, how far is Mars from your imagination? And the answer feels simple, not far at all. The moment you think of it, you're already there, moving in slow motion through the quiet dust, beneath twin moons, under a sky tinted with soft butterscotch light. Tonight, as we begin our exploration, hold that idea gently. Mars is distant in space but close in curiosity, far in kilometres but near in wonder, remote in the sky but familiar in the heart, a place that waits, a place that watches, a place that drifts quietly through your thoughts like a calm red lantern glowing in the dark. And so, with that warm question resting softly in the mind, we drift into the next step of our journey. A slow, soothing overview of the world we're about to explore more deeply. Before we wander into the 50 gentle truths waiting on the horizon, let's settle into a quiet overview of Mars, not as a scientific object, but as a world with its own rhythm, its own breath, its own patient story. Let this be a soft introduction, the way you might slowly open a curtain to let in the first warm glow of morning light. Mars is small, but not fragile. It's about half the size of Earth, a world shaped like a modest sphere drifting in a large, slow orbit. Where Earth feels full of oceans, mountains, forests, storms, Mars feels spacious, open, unhurried, a planet where nothing competes for attention and everything rests exactly as it has for millions of years. Its air is thin, almost transparent. If you were standing on the surface, you might barely feel it. Just a faint whisper brushing past your face, a soft sigh more than a breeze. The atmosphere is mostly carbon dioxide, too delicate to carry strong winds, too light to press heavily against your skin. It's the kind of air that creates silence rather than stirs it. And Mars is cold, but its coldness isn't harsh. It's the calm kind of cold, like the chill of an early morning when frost clings to grass and the world hasn't yet awakened. Temperatures dip far below freezing, but the stillness makes the cold feel almost peaceful, like a world wrapped in a long unbroken winter nap. The planet's surface is made of iron-rich dust, spreading in soft waves across wide plains, drifting into dunes shaped by old winds. That dust, that ancient powder, is what gives Mars its warm red glow. Not the red of fire or heat, but the red of aged stone, of clay warmed by sunset, of quiet embers glowing beneath ashes, a muted, comforting red. If you could watch a Martian day unfold from dawn to dusk, the sky would shift through colours you've never seen on Earth. A pale butterscotch light fills the morning, a soft gold drifts through the afternoon, and at sunset the sky turns a cool blue, a reversal of our world, where dawn and dusk burn warm. On Mars the day ends in hush and blue, as if the planet itself exhales at twilight. A full day there, a sol, lasts just a little longer than ours, about 24 hours and 39 minutes. That extra time gives every moment a slight stretch, as if Mars is inviting you to slow down, to take one more breath before moving on. Even time itself moves with gentleness there, and above all, Mars feels empty in a soothing way. Not empty like loneliness, empty like a blank page, empty like a quiet beach long after the tide has gone out, a place where silence becomes a landscape. This is the Mars we'll drift through tonight, a small, calm world with a thin breath, a soft glow, and a long memory. A planet where the past is written in dust and stone, where the present moves slowly, and where the future feels open, patient, waiting. Hold this image gently, like a lantern cupped between your hands. It's the starting point for the 50 relaxing facts to come, each one a small window into the quiet beauty of this neighbouring world. Mars glows in a shade unlike anything else in the night sky. Not the icy blue of distant stars, not the silver shimmer of our moon, but a warm muted red, the colour of ancient dust drifting across a world that has been quiet for billions of years. That soft red hue is the first relaxing fact of the planet. Mars is red not because it burns, because it rests. The redness comes from iron oxide, rust, covering much of the Martian surface. But this isn't the rust of abandoned metal or forgotten tools. This is natural rust, born from stone, wind, and time. Tiny grains of iron-rich dust have reacted with the thin breath of oxygen in the atmosphere over countless ages, turning the surface into a landscape brushed with soft, reddish tones. These grains are incredibly fine, almost like powdered clay, so light they can float in the air for months, settling slowly back onto the ground like the gentlest snowfall. Imagine standing on a quiet ridge, watching faint red dust drift across the horizon, each particle taking its time as it settles onto stone that has not changed for centuries. The dust doesn't blanket Mars harshly. It lies like a memory, thin, delicate, and patient. On some days, sunlight scatters through these suspended grains, giving the sky its signature butterscotch glow. On others, the dust stays close to the surface, painting the dunes in deep, warm shades that look like embers cooling after a long extinguished fire. If you could run your hand through the dust, it would feel soft like silk that has been chilled forever. It wouldn't cling the way Earth's soil does. It would simply drift away, weightless, dissolving into the thin Martian air the moment your fingers lifted. Every grain has travelled farther than most winds can carry it, moving slowly across plains, valleys and craters, a nomad planet of tiny wanderers. There's something soothing about a world covered in dust, so ancient it predates life on Earth. Something calming in knowing that the red surface we see today is a tapestry woven by time alone, untouched by forests, oceans or footsteps. It's a reminder of patience, of how nature creates beauty through slow, persistent motion. And when we look up at Mars from our own world, that gentle red shimmer is a message from across the void, a message that says, I am still here, I am quiet, but I endure. My glow is not a flame, it is a memory. In a universe filled with fierce storms, exploding stars and roaring galaxies, Mars stands out not through violence, but through calm. Its colour is not the colour of danger. It is the colour of age, of stillness, of landscapes that have had endless time to rest. Tonight, as we drift deeper into the relaxing truths of Mars, hold that image softly in your mind, a world painted red by the slow, patient touch of dust older than history, glowing gently in the dark. There is something comforting about the way time moves on Mars. For all its strangeness, its cold air, its red dust, its thin sky, the planet keeps rhythm with us in a way no other world does. A Martian day, called a sol, lasts just a little longer than our own, 24 hours, 39 minutes, and 35 seconds. Only 40 gently stretched minutes separate a day on Earth from a day on Mars. In the vastness of space, that similarity feels like a small miracle. Imagine waking up beneath a pale butterscotch sky, knowing the day ahead would feel familiar, not alien, not disorienting, just slightly slowed, as if the world were giving you a little extra time to breathe before the next moment arrives. Mars turns on its axis with the same calm steadiness we know on Earth. Sunrise drifts in, shadows lengthen, dusk settles softly, night unfolds without hurry. If you were to stand on its surface, you might not even notice the difference at first. The way the light spreads across the horizon, the way the sun arcs slowly overhead, it all moves with a rhythm your body already understands. Your inner clock would adjust gently, like easing into a longer exhale. Those extra 40 minutes stretch the day just slightly, creating a subtle sense of spaciousness. It's not enough to disrupt the flow of time, only enough to soften it. Enough to make each hour feel like it drifts just a little farther before falling away. Astronauts and mission planners often remark on how easy it is to fall into Martian time cycles. Sleep schedules lengthen naturally. Routines adjust without force. Many describe it as a day that feels like home, but calmer. A familiar cadence slowed by just the right amount, and there's something soothing about imagining that. A world where your days are familiar, yet gently extended, like life itself has taken one slow step back, offering you more room to wander, to notice, to drift. Picture the sun on Mars. Smaller than the sun you know, dimmer, almost shy. It lifts above the horizon like a distant lantern, spreading a pale golden wash over quiet plains. It lingers a little longer before dipping behind the ridge of a nearby crater. The day doesn't cling, nor does it vanish in a rush. It simply slides into night, and when night arrives, it arrives softly, with twin moons drifting across the dark and stars scattered in sharper clarity than any earthly sky can offer. Your body still feels like it's living a normal day. Your breath still follows its familiar pattern, but everything is just a touch slower, as if the planet itself is whispering, "Take your time." A Martian day feels like home because it mirrors the pace of life we already know. Stretched, softened, unhurried. A cadence that welcomes you rather than overwhelms you. As we drifted deeper into the soothing truths of Mars, let this rhythm settle into your breathing. A quiet reminder that time itself can be gentle, and that even on another world your inner compass would still find its way. Mars is a small planet, but its smallness isn't a limitation. It's a quality, a gentleness, a softness in the way gravity pulls you toward its surface. Lighter, quieter, almost hesitant. Where Earth's gravity feels firm and grounding, Mars holds you with a touch that feels more like an invitation than a command. Gravity on Mars is only about 1/3 of what we feel here. If you weigh 60 kilograms on Earth, you would weigh just 20 there. But numbers only tell part of the story. The rest, the emotional truth, lives in the way your body would move. Each step would lift you higher than you expect. Each stride would drift a little longer. Even a simple hop would carry you in a slow, floating arc, like a leaf caught in a gentle updraft. Imagine standing on the red dust and taking your first careful step. Your foot presses down softly, and instead of the ground holding you tightly, it lets you go with ease. You rise, not in a jolt, but in a slow, weightless drift, as if the planet is letting you dance just above its surface. Walking would feel less like walking, and more like gliding, a quiet bounce through a silent landscape. Mars isn't a world that anchors you, it's a world that lets you breathe a little easier, a world that lifts you instead of pulling you down. Even your heartbeat might feel different, lighter in your chest, softer in your ribs, as if your body itself is surprised by how little effort everything takes. The rocks too behave differently under such gentle gravity. Dust hangs longer in the air before settling. Pebbles fall in slow motion. Even a thrown stone would arc in a graceful stretched path, gliding far, far farther than it ever could on Earth. It's a place where movement becomes a form of meditation, and because gravity shapes everything, from landscapes to weather to the way dunes form, the whole planet feels quieter. Mountains grow taller because they bear less weight. Volcanoes spread wider. Cliffs crumble more slowly. Even the pressure of time feels softened. On Mars, change comes in slow breaths. Sometimes, when scientists describe Mars as small, the word carries a tone of limitation. But when you imagine yourself standing there, surrounded by a horizon that curves more gently than Earth's, that smallness feels intimate. Like the difference between a vast arena and a quiet room. One overwhelms, the other comforts. A small world is easier to hold in the mind, easier to imagine walking across, easier to feel connected to, as if you could stretch your arms and almost hold its thin atmosphere in your palms. And perhaps that is why Mars feels so familiar, despite all its differences. It's not immense or intimidating. It's a world scaled to human curiosity. A world where each step feels effortless, where each motion feels lighter, where even your own body feels just a little freer. As you picture that gentle gravity, that soft, quiet lift beneath your feet, let the thoughts settle into your breathing. Let it remind you that not every world weighs heavily. Some worlds welcome you with the gift of lightness. The atmosphere of Mars is so thin, so delicate that it barely feels like air at all. On Earth, we live inside a thick, invisible ocean of pressure and breath. But on Mars, that ocean becomes a whisper, a faint, fragile layer of gas that rests gently over the planet, as if afraid to disturb its quiet surface. It is an atmosphere that moves softly, speaks softly, and holds its silence with care. If you were standing there, you might hear nothing at all. No rustling leaves, no distant rush of traffic, no birds or insects filling the air with sound. Just a subtle hiss of cold wind sliding across dunes. A sound so faint it almost disappears before reaching your ears. The thinness of the Martian atmosphere makes silence the default language of the planet. Most of the air is carbon dioxide, with only traces of other gases mixed in. It carries little warmth, little weight, almost no moisture. When wind passes over the ground, it doesn't push strongly the way Earth's wind does. Instead, it brushes gently against the dust, lifting only the finest grains and letting them drift in slow spirals that dissolve into the horizon. Imagine watching that movement, tiny particles swirling lightly, like powdered cinnamon blown across a countertop. The dust lifts, glows softly in the sunlight, then falls again as if sighing back to the surface. Even storms, when they form, behave more like drifting veils than roaring tempests. A Martian storm can wrap the entire planet, yet still feel quiet. A slow spreading haze rather than a forceful rage. Because the air is so thin, sound travels differently. A distant crack of rock, a footstep, even your own voice would sound muted, as if everything were wrapped in a thick blanket of calm. If you spoke, your voice would feel small, swallowed quickly by the sparse molecules around you. It's a place where even your breath would feel like a private moment, held close to your chest. And in that silence, the world reveals its softer side. You could stand on a ridge and hear nothing but your own heartbeat. You could watch the horizon without interruption, without the noise of storms or waves or wildlife. Mars doesn't demand your attention. It offers you room to simply exist. The kind of room that feels rare. The kind of quiet that lets thoughts drift freely without colliding with the noise of daily life. If you closed your eyes, the air would feel almost absent. A cool, light touch against your face, nothing more. Open your eyes again. and you'd see the soft glow of sunlight scattered through dust, creating skies that shift from pale gold to gentle orange. This fragile atmosphere, thin as it is, still paints the planet in colours that soothe the mind. There is something calming about a world where the air whispers instead of roars, something peaceful in the idea of standing in a place where silence is ancient, practiced, and undisturbed. Mars teaches us that an atmosphere doesn't need to be strong to be beautiful. It can be thin, quiet, patient, and still hold an entire planet in its delicate embrace. As you breathe slowly now, imagine inhaling that gentleness, that soft, whispering air, and letting it settle over your thoughts, quieting them one by one. Mars moves around the Sun with a long, slow grace. Where Earth circles our star in a brisk one-year loop, Mars drifts through a wider orbit, a quiet ellipse that takes almost twice as long to complete. Because of this unhurried path, the seasons on Mars unfold with extraordinary patience. Spring, summer, autumn, and winter stretch out like long, calm breaths, each lasting many Earth months, each shifting so gradually that the planet seems to exhale into every change. What makes this especially soothing is that Mars, like Earth, tilts on its axis. Its tilt, about 25 degrees, is close to our own, meaning that the rhythm of light and shadow across the Martian year feels strangely familiar. There are summers in the north, winters in the south, and gentle periods of transition between them. But on Mars, these transitions don't rush forward. They drift, they wander, they stretch across vast plains and quiet dunes with a softness that time rarely shows us here on Earth. Imagine how slowly the light would change, how morning after morning, the sun might rise just a breath earlier or later so subtly that only someone watching with a patient heart could notice. The seasons don't turn with sudden bursts of new life or dramatic shifts in weather. They move in gradual shades like the slow fading of twilight on a long summer evening. Summers on Mars are cool and dry, not warm in the earthly sense, yet warmer than the deep cold of winter. During these summer months, the polar caps shrink slowly as sunlight touches them more directly. Frost sublimates into the thin air, dust rises gently, and the sky holds a little more warmth. Winters are long and crisp, painting the planet in frost. Carbon dioxide freezes into delicate layers of ice, covering the poles in pale, shimmering sheets. Some nights, the faint Martian winds scatter tiny flakes of frozen CO2, not snow the way we know it, but a soft, powdery drift that settles almost silently on the ground. Autumn and spring on Mars are whispers more than seasons. Each one is a slow transition between light and shadow, warmth and cold, dust and frost. A shifting of hues across the landscape, from deeper reds to soft pinks, from pale oranges to quiet greys. Nothing dramatic, just slow change, the kind that feels almost meditative to imagine. The length of the Martian year means that a single season offers space to breathe, to wander, to watch. It stretches long enough for you to feel the rhythm settle into your bones, long enough that, if you lived there, your life would unfold against a canvas where time moves gently, like ripples across a still pond. There is something comforting in this slow pace, something soothing in a world that doesn't rush through its transformations. Mars teaches us that not every season needs to be hurried, vibrant, or overflowing with motion. Some seasons can simply be quiet, steady, patient. As you imagine the long Martian year unfolding in soft tones, let that slow rhythm seep into your breath. Let it lengthen the moments between thoughts. Let it remind you that change, even the quietest kind, can be beautiful when it's allowed to move at its own pace. If you ever looked up from the surface of Mars, the sky would not greet you with the deep blue you know so well. Instead, it would glow in soft shades of butterscotch, pale, warm, and dust-tinted, like sunlight filtered through a delicate veil of powdered amber. It's one of the most surprising and soothing truths of the red planet. Despite its cold air and barren plains, its daylight sky carries a quiet golden warmth. The butterscotch colour comes from the fine dust suspended gently in the atmosphere. These grains of iron-rich powder scatter sunlight in a unique way, bending it into soft, warm hues that fill the entire dome overhead. The sunlight isn't intense or overwhelming. It's gentle, muted by the thin air, softened by the drifting particles that hang like a permanent haze. On Mars, daylight feels like standing inside a faint golden exhale. Imagine walking across a quiet Martian plain, the ground stretching in long red waves, the sky overhead glowing like a distant lantern wrapped in silk. The sun looks smaller here, about 2/3 the size it appears from Earth, and its light spreads wide and thin, leaving no harsh glare. Shadows fall long and soft, blurred slightly by the dust. Nothing feels sharp. Everything feels understated. And then comes the part that feels almost magical. As the sun begins to set, the sky shifts from warm gold to cool blue. On Earth, sunsets burn in reds and oranges. But on Mars, the opposite is true. Dust that scatters warm colours during the day lets blue light pass more easily during twilight. So when the sun dips toward the horizon, the world slowly bathes you in a pale, icy shade of blue. A blue that looks both foreign and deeply calming. Picture that twilight. The sun, small and distant, glowing through a thin veil of dust. The sky around it cooling into soft sapphire tones. The landscape beneath shifting from red to deep shadow. And above it all, the quietest hush of wind, carrying grains of dust that have drifted for millions of years. It's hard not to imagine how soothing it would feel to stand there, wrapped in silence, watching a sky that changes colour in ways no earthly evening ever does. A golden day that dissolves into a blue, dusk, a sky painted not by clouds or storms, but by ancient particles that never hurry, never rush, never stop drifting. The butterscotch glow of day and the blue hush of sunset make Mars feel strangely gentle. Even though the air is thin and the world is cold, the light brings a softness that surprises the imagination. Light that seems to drift instead of shine. Light that makes the entire planet feel like it's wrapped in a muted, calming dream. And maybe that's what makes the Martian sky so memorable. It isn't dramatic. It doesn't roar with colour. It hums. It glows. It softens the world beneath it, reminding us that even a harsh, empty planet has moments of delicate beauty. As you picture that soft butterscotch dome glowing quietly above red sands, let it drift through your thoughts like a warm breath, a reminder that even light in the coldest places can be gentle. When we imagine storms on Mars, our minds often leap to swirling chaos, walls of dust towering into the sky, winds roaring across empty plains. Movies paint them as fierce, violent forces, but the truth is far softer, far calmer, and far more in line with the quiet character of the red planet. On Mars, most storms are gentle veils of dust, drifting slowly like a planet-sized sigh. Because the atmosphere is so thin, even the strongest Martian winds have far less force than a light breeze on Earth. A gust that would barely lift a leaf here might raise plumes of dust there, simply because the particles are so fine, as light as powdered cocoa, as ancient as the world itself. The storms aren't powerful because of wind strength. They're powerful because of time. Time that allows tiny grains to float and settle in unhurried motions, shaping the surface in ways almost invisible moment to moment. Imagine sitting on a quiet ridge as a dust storm approaches. You wouldn't hear the roar of wind. You wouldn't feel the ground tremble. No thunder, no sharp gusts. Only the lightest rustle, a soft brushing of particles gliding over stone. The horizon would begin to blur, shapes fading gently as a warm haze settles in. It wouldn't be frightening. It would feel like watching fog roll across a valley. Slow, diffuse, meditative. Some dust storms on Mars can grow large enough to cover entire continents. A few even expand until they wrap the entire planet in a golden mist. But even these planet-spanning events are calm from the surface. They drift into place gradually, dimming the sunlight until the sky glows like muted amber. The sun becomes a faint white dot, then disappears into soft, uniform brightness. The world turns quiet, even more quiet than usual, as if holding its breath beneath a warm blanket of dust. And then, just as slowly, the storm thins. Dust settles. Light returns in gentle increments. Shadows reappear. There is no sudden clearing, no dramatic shift. Only a gradual unveiling, like a curtain being lifted millimetre by millimetre. Mars doesn't hurry through its storms. It lets them come and go with patience. What's most soothing is understanding how delicate these storms are. Despite their scale, they carry a softness that defines Mars itself. A world shaped not by violent upheavals, but by gentle persistence. Every dune, every ripple, every fine layer of dust built on another is the result of countless small motions, billions of tiny grains drifting with the lightest breath of wind. Scientists studying these storms sometimes describe them as weather made of whispers. And it's true, they are the quietest tempest in the solar system, born from an atmosphere barely strong enough to lift dust, yet steady enough to shape landscapes over aeons. If you picture it now, a whole world wrapped in a soft golden haze, let the image settle like dust itself, slowly, lightly, without weight. A reminder that not all storms thunder and rage. Some storms soothe, some storms drift, some storms hush the world into deeper silence. As we continue exploring the gentle truths of Mars, carry this image with you. A storm that feels more like a lullaby than a warning, moving in slow motion across a quiet, ancient world. On Mars, there is a mountain so large, so wide, and so ancient that it doesn't feel like a mountain at all. It feels like a sleeping giant, a vast, silent presence rising gently from the plains, resting under the thin Martian sky. This is Olympus Mons, the tallest volcano in the entire solar system. But despite its record-breaking height, its story is not one of violence. It is a story of slowness, patience, and long, quiet rest. Olympus Mons stands about 22 kilometers tall, nearly 3 times the height of Mount Everest. Yet if you were standing at its base, you might not even realize you were at the foot of a colossal mountain. Its slopes are so broad, so shallow, that they rise like the softest incline, stretching outward for hundreds of kilometers. You could walk up the side of this titan and never encounter a steep climb. Just a gradual ascent, gentle enough to feel like a stroll across an endless plain. This shape is a product of the planet's gentle gravity and slow volcanic activity. Over millions of years, lava flowed out not in violent bursts, but in calm, repeated layers, spreading wide before cooling, stacking quietly upon itself. The result is a volcano that sprawls like a continent, rising not sharply, but peacefully, as though built by steady hands untroubled by time. Imagine standing partway up its slope. The horizon would curve softly around you. The landscape would stretch farther than your eyes could follow, a red, muted expanse fading into the thin sky. There would be no jagged cliffs, no roaring heat, no trembling ground. Just silence, just space, just the feeling of being atop something that has been asleep for eons. Olympus Mons last erupted millions of years ago. Since then, it has rested in deep stillness, its lava channels petrified, its craters calm, its slopes untouched except by drifting dust and the slow movement of sunlight. It is not a mountain of fire anymore. It is a monument to time, a record of a world cooling down, settling, and exhaling. On Earth, Mountains often feel alive. They rumble, they crack, they shift under the pressure of weather and plate movement. But Olympus Mons feels different. It feels unchanging, ancient, a place untouched by rain or rivers, untouched by trees or snow. Only dust has walked across its face. Dust older than continents. Dust that drifts with the patience of a planet in no hurry at all. If you sat on its summit, the highest point on any known planet, the sky would look thinner, paler. The sun, smaller and cooler, would cast soft shadows over slopes so wide you could not see where they ended. Night would fall gently. Mars's two tiny moons, Phobos and Deimos, would drift overhead like shy companions, and beneath you the giant would not stir. There is a deep comfort in the idea of such a mountain, one that grew slowly, rests quietly, and towers without menace. Olympus Mons is not a symbol of danger. It is a symbol of patience, a reminder that even the mightiest forces can move gently, and even the largest structures can sleep peacefully. As you imagine that vast, calm giant resting under a muted sky, let its stillness seep into your thoughts, a reminder that strength doesn't always roar. Sometimes it simply rests. Stretching across the face of Mars like a quiet scar carved by time itself, Valles Marineris is one of the most breathtaking features in the solar system. It is not a single canyon, but a network, an immense system of valleys so wide, so deep and so long that it defies comparison to anything on Earth. If Olympus Mons is the gentle giant of Mars, then Valles Marineris is its silent river of stone, stretching nearly 4,000 kilometers across the equator. But despite its colossal scale, there is nothing violent about it. When we imagine canyons, we often picture roaring rivers carving through rock, or tectonic plates pulling with force. Yet Mars has neither rushing rivers nor restless plates. This vast canyon likely formed quietly through the slow stretching of the planet's crust, the gentle collapse of ancient surfaces, and the patient work of time. A masterpiece shaped not by chaos, but by calm geological breath. Imagine standing at the edge of one of the deeper chasms. The drop beneath you could reach 7 kilometers, deeper than Earth's Grand Canyon by far, but the walls would slope in smooth stepped layers, softened by dust and millennia of quiet erosion. The vastness would not shout, it would whisper. From your vantage point, the canyon floor might fade into a pale haze, dust drifting lazily upward in the thin air. Sunlight would spill across the stone in muted gold, filling the deep valleys with a soft, otherworldly glow. Shadows would stretch long and slow, barely shifting as the distant sun moved across the sky. There is something deeply soothing about the idea of such immensity existing with such quiet. No rushing river echoes from below, no forests cling to the walls, no storms roar through the depths, just stillness, the kind that feels ancient and patient, the kind that calms the breath by merely imagining it. Scientists believe that some parts of Valles Marineris once hosted landslides, frost, or even thin, ephemeral mists. Nothing dramatic, just the subtle signs of a world grieving its lost warmth. Even today, dust devils spin slowly along the canyon floor, their paths gentle and deliberate, dancing through a landscape that has been asleep for ages. If you walked along its rim, the horizon would feel different. Not a line, but a curve. The canyon opening like a deep sigh across the land. The air would be colder, thinner, so still you could hear your own heartbeat echo faintly inside your suit. Every sound would feel small, every movement deliberate. Valles Marineris wouldn't overwhelm you, it would welcome your quiet. There is a peaceful loneliness in this canyon, not the loneliness of being abandoned, but the kind that allows introspection, breath, and calm. A vast, empty cathedral of stone where even thoughts seem to slow down. Mars holds many wonders, but few reflect its character as elegantly as Valles Marineris. It is immense, but soft, ancient but unhurried, a record of a world shaped not by noise but by silence. As you picture that endless valley carved across a calm planet, let its scale gently wash over your thoughts, not to overwhelm you, but to remind you that even the biggest things in the universe can carry the energy of stillness. Just beneath the quiet surface of Mars, hidden under thin layers of dust and stone, lies a secret the planet has held for millions of years: frozen water. Not in oceans or lakes, not in flowing rivers or drifting clouds, but locked gently within the soil itself. A world of ice sleeping just below the red sands. It is one of the planet's most calming truths, that beneath its stillness, Mars preserves the memory of water like a dream it hasn't woken from. The soil of Mars, especially in its mid-latitudes and near the poles, holds ice mixed with dust, delicate crystals resting in the cold darkness underground. You wouldn't see them from the surface. The landscape looks dry, ancient, untouched by anything that resembles moisture. Yet a few centimetres down, the world changes. Frost begins to gather. Tiny shards of ice cling to grains of sand, shining faintly if disturbed by light. It's like finding snow buried under desert soil, subtle, hidden, but undeniably there. Imagine leaning down and brushing aside a whisper-thin layer of dust. The air is cold and silent. Red grains slip away beneath your fingertips, revealing a pale shimmer just below. The ice looks fragile, almost soft, as if it might melt from the warmth of your breath. But here, in the thin, freezing atmosphere of Mars, it remains solid, preserved in perfect stillness. This underground ice tells a story about the planet's past. A past where water flowed freely, carving channels, filling valleys, forming lakes that mirrored the soft Martian sky. That water is gone now, lifted into the air and carried away into space over millions of years, but the ground remembers. Tiny pockets of ice remain, like echoes of rivers long extinct. Every winter the cold deepens, and some areas see additional frost settle beneath the soil, slipping between grains like a quiet visitor. Every spring, sunlight touches the ground and causes thin layers of frost to sublimate, not melt, but fade directly into vapour, vanishing without a sound. There is no dripping, no flowing, no rushing, just the soft transformation of ice into air. Sometimes, spacecraft have scratched the surface with their robotic arms and uncovered these frozen secrets by accident. A scoop of soil reveals a sparkle. A patch of ground, disturbed by wheels, brightens for a moment before disappearing back into the thin air. Ice exposed to the Martian sky evaporates quickly as if shy, retreating from view the moment light finds it. And yet, the majority remains hidden, untouched, protected by the dust that blankets it. This dust acts like a blanket, a thin, ancient sheet that keeps the cold steady, the ice undisturbed. It's peaceful to imagine an entire planet storing quiet pockets of frozen memory beneath its surface, preserving the past in stillness. If you could walk across a plain knowing that just under your feet lies this sleeping water, you might feel a strange closeness to Mars, as if the planet itself carries a heartbeat, slow and subtle, hidden but present. Not a pulse of sound or heat, but a pulse of history. Mars may appear dry, empty and silent, but beneath its surface it holds fragments of the world it once was. Not gone, not forgotten, just waiting under the red dust, patient, quiet, enduring. As you imagine that frozen layer beneath your footsteps, let it settle into your mind like a cold, calm breath, a reminder that even in barren places something gentle can remain. At the northern and southern tips of Mars the world changes. The red dust softens, the ground brightens, and the planet shifts into a palette of pale whites and shimmering blues. These are the Martian polar caps, vast glowing sheets of ice that rest quietly at the planet's extremes. They might be the most peaceful places on Mars, glowing softly beneath the thin, cold sky. The poles of Mars are layered with two kinds of ice. The first is water ice, the same familiar frozen form we know on Earth, bright as frost on a winter morning. The second is carbon dioxide ice, or dry ice, which forms only during the colder seasons, spreading like a delicate film across the already frozen landscape. Together, they create surfaces that glimmer when touched by sunlight, casting pale halos of light across the surrounding plains. Imagine standing near the edge of the northern cap at dawn. The sun rises slowly, smaller than you're used to, its light stretching thin across the horizon. The ice beneath your feet glows softly, not dazzling like fresh snow on Earth, but muted, like moonlight resting on polished stone. The air is cold and still. The silence feels almost holy. As the seasons shift, these caps breathe. During the long Martian winter, carbon dioxide from the atmosphere freezes onto the surface, thickening the caps and expanding them outward. When spring arrives, the sunlight gently warms the ice, causing the dry ice layer to sublimate, turning directly into vapor and drifting back into the atmosphere. The caps shrink, not abruptly, but with slow, graceful precision. Nothing rushes here, not the frost, not the wind, not the light. Even time seems to move differently, stretching itself thin over the quiet white expanse. One of the most soothing things about the Martian poles is their sense of permanence. While the dry ice layers come and go with the seasons, the deeper water ice remains, locked in place through countless Martian years. It has survived dust storms, temperature swings, and epochs of planetary change, always watching, always resting, always glowing beneath the pale sky. Sometimes, when dust from the rest of the planet drifts toward the poles, it settles in faint stripes across the ice. These layers build up over time, creating soft patterns, gentle rings, muted swirls, delicate bands that record ancient winds like pages of a quiet diary. Scientists can read these layers to learn about Mars's past climates, but there's also a quiet poetry in them, a frozen memory of how the planet has breathed, changed, and endured. If you wandered across the polar surface, your footsteps would leave almost no sound. The dry air would swallow it, the ice would absorb it. Even your breath might feel muted, each exhale forming a faint cloud that lingers for just a moment before vanishing into the cold air. There is beauty here, not the dramatic beauty of mountains or storms, but the soft beauty of stillness, a landscape painted in white and pale blue, shifting only with the seasons, glowing quietly beneath a distant sun. As you imagine those frozen caps shimmering at the edges of a silent world, let their calm linger in your thoughts. Let it cool the noise of the day, smoothing your mind the way frost smooths the Martian horizon. On some mornings on Mars, just before the sun lifts over the horizon, the red sands glow with a colour so gentle and unexpected that it feels like a dream. A thin layer of frost, not white, not silver, but pale blue, rests across the dunes and rocks, tinting the landscape in quiet, icy hues. This is carbon dioxide frost, a delicate film of dry ice that forms during the cold Martian night, when temperatures fall so low that even the thin air begins to freeze. The idea of blue frost on a red planet carries a calm contrast. Two colours meeting softly, cold blue settling atop warm rust, like a whisper placed gently over a sleeping ember. It is one of Mars's quietest wonders, appearing only in the coldest hours, vanishing almost as soon as sunlight touches it. Imagine walking across the surface before dawn. The world is silent, the air sharp and thin. Your flashlight catches faint glimmers of blue, tiny crystals scattered across the ground like crushed sapphire. Every grain of frost rests lightly on the dust, forming patterns that look almost like lace, intricate, fragile, temporary. The frost doesn't crunch underfoot the way snow does on Earth. There is no sound of breaking crystals. Instead, each step releases the frost into the air as vapor, a soft, silent puff that disappears instantly. The ground beneath remains cold and undisturbed, as if the frost was never really there at all. As the sun rises, its pale light spills over the horizon. On Mars, sunrise is gentle, a dim glow that slowly brightens the butterscotch sky. The first rays brush the frozen dunes, and the blue frost reacts almost immediately. It doesn't melt, the air is too thin. It sublimates, turning directly from solid to vapor. As it fades, the red sands reappear beneath, warmed by the sunlight, returning to their familiar color. This transition is quiet, unhurried. The frost vanishes layer by layer, lifting into the air as if exhaling. The dunes shift from cool blue to warm red in a slow, graceful transformation, like watching a watercolor painting change shades in real time. Scientists have captured images of this frost with orbiters and rovers. In those photographs, the landscape looks serene and delicate, the blue tones painting the slopes of craters and the crests of dunes. But the human imagination adds something more. It adds stillness. It adds breath. It adds the sense of standing in a place where night leaves behind not darkness, but beauty. The existence of this frost tells us that Mars still holds traces of its ancient atmosphere. Traces that freeze and thaw in gentle cycles, preserving a rhythm the planet has kept for billions of years. A rhythm of quiet nights and slow mornings. A rhythm of cold exhale and warm return. There is something soothing about imagining a planet waking this way. Not abruptly, not with noise or motion, but with frost that appears and vanishes like a passing thought. Blue, cold, silent. A moment of fragile stillness beneath a rising sun. As you picture that delicate frost glowing on silent dunes, let its cool calm settle into your breathing. Let it remind you that even the coldest places can create the softest beauty, if you pause long enough to notice. Snow falls on Mars, but not the way we know it. There are no heavy flakes drifting through thick, cold air. No swirling blizzards filling the sky. No soft, muffled footsteps crunching beneath a winter blanket. Martian snow is quieter, lighter, more delicate than anything we experience on Earth. It falls like dust. It drifts like a whisper. There are two kinds of snow on Mars. One is made of water ice, forming tiny particles that fall gently through clouds high above the surface. The other is carbon dioxide snow, dry ice crystals that form during the coldest nights, especially near the poles. These dry ice flakes are so small, so fine, that they resemble powdered sugar sprinkled across the ground. Imagine standing beneath a Martian sky during a snowfall. The air is so thin that each particle falls slowly, almost lazily, taking its time as it floats downward. You might see faint glimmers as the tiny crystals catch the pale sunlight, like flecks of silver suspended in stillness. The flakes make no sound when they land. There is no weight to them, no thud, no crunch, just a soft settling, a quiet moment of contact between dust and ice. Because the atmosphere is so delicate, snow on Mars rarely forms thick blankets. Instead, it creates thin layers, ghostly coatings that trace the tops of rocks and the curves of dunes. In some places, it appears only as a shimmer, barely thick enough to cover the red beneath, a frost that arrives like a thought and dissolves like a sigh. When carbon dioxide snow touches the ground, it behaves unlike anything on Earth. It doesn't melt. The temperatures are far too cold and the air far too thin. Instead, as light returns, the snow sublimates, turning straight from solid to vapor, rising invisibly back into the sky. It's as though the snow was never meant to stay, only to leave a momentary breath of winter upon the land. Even water ice snow when it falls moves in slow motion, The thin air offers little resistance, and flakes drift downward with a silence that feels almost sacred. Rovers have observed this snowfall from a distance, capturing faint streaks of ice moving through cold, dim light, a quiet ballet of frozen particles. If you found yourself in this snowfall, the experience would be gentle and surreal. Your suit would frost over lightly, your steps would leave faint impressions in the thin dusting, some of which might evaporate before you take another step. The sky would look pale and soft, washed in muted gold or faint blue depending on the time of day, and around you, an entire world would be listening, still, cold, untroubled. There is something soothing about the idea of snow that doesn't rush, doesn't pile, doesn't overwhelm, a snow that falls quietly, patiently, content to exist for only a brief moment before disappearing. A snow that marks the passing of seasons not with noise or depth, but with a light touch. It reminds us that winter doesn't always have to be harsh. Sometimes it can be gentle. Sometimes it can be soft enough to calm the mind. Even on a distant planet, in air so thin it barely exists, winter finds a way to whisper. As you imagine that delicate snow drifting over red sand, let the image settle inside you like a cool, slow breath, a reminder that even the coldest worlds find ways to express tenderness. Across the surface of Mars you can find shapes that look strangely familiar. Winding curves, branching paths, smooth valleys carved into the stone. At first glance they seem like dried riverbeds, the kind of channels water would shape if it had flowed freely for thousands of years. And that is exactly what they are. The quiet ghosts of rivers that once moved gently across a younger, warmer Mars. These rivers are long gone now. No liquid water runs across the planet's surface today. The air is too thin, the temperature too cold, but their memory is etched into the land, carved into soft curves, gentle banks, and meandering channels that stretch for hundreds of kilometers. Silent reminders of a time when Mars was not the cold desert we know, but a world with flowing water and softer skies. Imagine standing at the edge of one of these ancient channels. The ground slopes downward in a smooth, natural arc, just like the dry bed of a river on Earth. Rounded stones lie scattered along the path, shaped not by wind but by water that once tumbled them gently along. You might trace the curve of the river with your eyes, imagining where it once flowed, how it might have sparkled under the Martian sun, how quietly it might have whispered as it slid over red soil. There is a soothing sadness in these shapes, not the sadness of loss, but of memory, a world remembering itself, a world that once held warmth and movement, now resting in long stillness. Some of these riverbeds connect to dried-up deltas, beautifully fanned patterns where water once spread out, slowing as it reached wide, shallow basins. Others lead into ancient lake beds, smooth plains where sediments settle gently on the bottom of calm, shallow waters. You can almost picture a still lake reflecting pale butterscotch skies, its surface rippling with the faintest breeze. And though the water is gone, the story remains. A story written in lines across the land, in gentle curves that speak of flow rather than violence. Nothing about these features suggests turbulence. The rivers of early Mars could have been slow, steady streams, patient sculptors shaping the land with quiet persistence. Rovers exploring these regions have photographed layers of sediment, smooth pebbles, and minerals that only form in water. Some rocks show signs of having been soaked for centuries, others contain hints of long evaporated lakes or shallow seas. It's as if the entire surface holds echoes of water, soft fingerprints left behind by an ancient touch. Imagine walking through one of these channels, the air still and thin, the sky gently glowing above you. Your footsteps leave faint marks in dust that has not been disturbed for ages. You follow the gentle curve of the dry river, and even though there is no sound, no motion, you can almost sense a flow, a memory of movement lingering in the shape of the land. There's peace in that, a reminder that even things long gone can leave beauty behind. That movement, once it drifts away, can still shape the world softly. That a planet can hold on to its past without clinging, without noise, without sorrow, simply through the quiet preservation of form. As you breathe slowly now, imagine those ancient rivers not as losses, but as whispers left for us to find. Traces of a time when Mars was warmer, wetter, perhaps more alive. Ghosts, yes, but gentle ones, guiding us through a planet that remembers itself in stone. Mars is covered with craters, round, quiet basins scattered across its surface like soft marks left by time. Each crater tells a story of something that once struck the planet long ago. Ancient asteroids, drifting debris, fragments of the solar system's restless youth. Yet when you look at these craters today, there is no violence left in them, only stillness, only vast circular bowls of dust resting under a silent sky. On Earth, wind, rain, oceans and forests erase impact scars over time. Our world heals itself quickly. But Mars has no such forces rushing across its face, no rain to wash away the marks, no rivers to reshape the stone, no thick atmosphere to wear the edges smooth. And so the craters remain, perfectly preserved, soft in their contours, patient in their presence. Imagine walking along the rim of one. The slope is gentle, covered in fine dust that shifts quietly beneath your steps. The descent into the crater feels like entering a natural amphitheatre carved by the universe itself. The floor is flat or slightly curved, a calm plain of ancient sediment. Nothing stirs, nothing interrupts the stillness. Even your breathing feels like it might echo. Most of these craters formed billions of years ago, during a period when impacts were frequent. But the drama of their creation is long gone. What remains is a kind of cosmic calm, the aftermath of chaos settled into deep, serene shapes. The rims rise like soft waves frozen in place. Some retain terraces, gentle steps descending toward the centre. Others have central peaks, created by the rebound of the rock during the moment of impact, now softened by dust, glowing faintly in the Martian light. Some craters contain dunes formed by slow-moving winds. These dunes curl into graceful patterns, like calligraphy etched across the floor of the basin. Their shapes shift over years and decades, each one a delicate response to breezes so faint they feel like breaths more than weather. Nothing sudden, nothing rushed. At dawn or dusk, the shadows inside these craters are long and calming. The sun, small and pale, casts thin beams across the edges, creating gentle gradients of orange, gold and soft blue. If you sat at the rim and watched the light move, you might lose track of time entirely. Its slow drift across the crater floor would feel like a meditation, each minute stretching into something quiet and unhurried. There's a special kind of peace in knowing that these craters have remained untouched for ages. No footsteps have crossed them. No water has reshaped them. No plants have grown along their walls. They exist in a kind of suspended stillness, a snapshot of deep time, and yet their presence does not feel lonely. It feels grounding, like reminders that the universe carries history with it, but softens the sharpness as time passes. What once was violent becomes serene. What once struck with force becomes a quiet bowl under a sky of dust. Picture yourself standing in the centre of one of these ancient basins. The walls curve around you like a protective embrace. The silence is total. Above, the sky glows in muted tones, dust giving the light a warm softness, and for a moment, you are at the heart of a memory, not your own, but the planet's. As you breathe in that image, let it soothe you. Let it remind you that even the most disruptive events can become calm with time, Even impact leaves room for peace. Deep beneath the quiet plains of Mars, the ground sometimes stirs, not with force, not with violence, but with gentle tremors so soft that the planet itself seems to be breathing in its sleep. These are Marsquakes, small, subtle rumbles that ripple through the crust like distant echoes. Unlike the sharp quakes we know on Earth, Mars's quakes arrive with calm. They carry the slow rhythm of a world that moves rarely and gently. Mars quakes aren't caused by shifting plates. There are no moving continents, no grinding boundaries, no deep fractures ripping apart the surface. Mars is geologically quieter than Earth by far. Its quakes come from gradual cooling, from the crust contracting slowly over millions of years, or from faint pressure shifts far below. It is a planet tightening slightly as it rests. Imagine placing your hand on the red dust and feeling the faintest vibration beneath your palm. Not a jolt, but a soft, nearly imperceptible thrum that comes and goes in a single sigh. Most Marsquakes are so gentle that even sensitive instruments struggle to notice them. Some last only moments. Others resonate quietly through the crust like a low hum inside ancient stone. NASA's InSight lander listened to these quakes for years, sitting alone on the Martian surface with its delicate seismometer pressed against the ground. It recorded tiny tremors that revealed the heartbeat of Mars, slow, patient, steady. Each quake a whisper from the planet's interior, telling scientists stories about the layers beneath, the crust, the mantle, the core, stories spoken in vibrations too soft for any ear to hear. If you were standing near one of these quakes, you wouldn't feel alarm. Your body might not notice anything at all. The ground would shift by less than the width of a grain of dust. There would be no sound, no cracking, no movement around you. Just the knowledge that somewhere far below, the planet gently adjusted itself. Sometimes these tremors travel through ancient lava plains, echoing faintly through hollow chambers left by long-cooled flows. Sometimes they resonate beneath canyons or old volcanic slopes, moving like a slow ripple through stone that hasn't changed for ages. They come without warning, but they also come without urgency. Mars moves only when it needs to, with deliberation, with patience. The quietness of Marsquakes has its own kind of beauty. They remind us that even worlds that seem still are never truly motionless. There is always a soft undertone of activity, a subtle murmur beneath the silence. Even in its rest, Mars breathes. Imagine lying on the surface at night, the sky deep and dark above you, the air frozen and thin. Phobos drifts overhead like a small, uneven lantern. The horizon glows faintly with starlight mixed with dust, and deep beneath you the faintest tremor passes, a reminder that the world below is alive in its own gentle way. It is comforting to think that Mars, a world so quiet and calm, still has a pulse, not a loud one, not a forceful one, but a pulse nonetheless, a vibration that travels through rock and dust, through valleys and plains, through the history stored in every grain of soil. As you breathe now, imagine your breath sinking with those subtle quakes, slow, light, deliberate, a rhythm that says, even in stillness there is life, even in silence there is motion, even in distant worlds calm can have depth. Silence is not just the absence of sound on Mars, it is the nature of the planet itself, a presence, a texture, a soft veil draped over every landscape, every horizon, every grain of dust. If Earth is a world of constant motion and layered noise, Mars is a world shaped by quiet, sculpted by stillness, built from the long unbroken breath of time. Imagine standing alone on a Martian plain. Your boots settle gently into fine red dust. No wind rushes past, no birds call, no trees shiver. Even your heartbeat seems loud in comparison to the planet around you. The silence feels like a gentle pressure, not heavy, not eerie, just deep. Deep enough that your thoughts begin to stretch out, spacious and slow, This silence comes from many places. It comes from the thin atmosphere, too delicate to carry sound far. It comes from the lack of liquid water, no rivers rushing, no waves breaking, no rainfall tapping softly against stone. It comes from the absence of life as we know it, no forest to murmur, no insects to hum. Mars is a world where nothing interrupts the quiet except the faint sigh of dust moving over rock. And even that dust moves without urgency. It drifts, it glides, it shifts over decades rather than days, sculpting dunes with gestures so subtle they're almost invisible. Mars doesn't breathe quickly, it breathes in ages. If you were to sit down on the edge of a crater and listen, you might feel the silence more than hear it. The way it cushions your mind, the way it slows your thoughts, unspooling them gently, the way it turns the entire landscape into a kind of meditation, a vast red sanctuary free from the rushing rhythms of Earth. Sunlight on Mars is quiet too. It arrives in soft, thin rays, filtered through the gentle haze of dust. Shadows stretch and shift without hurry. Dawn is a gradual lifting of dimness, and dusk is a slow fading of light into cold blue twilight. Nothing snaps, nothing leaps, everything moves at the pace of deep rest. Even the planet's two small moons cross the sky without sound, drifting like slow-moving lanterns. Phobos rises and sets multiple times a day with calm predictability. Deimos takes its time, circling high and measured. Together they trace silent paths above a landscape that has known more quiet hours than Earth could ever imagine. Some people fear silence because it feels empty, but on Mars silence feels full, filled with memory, filled with patience, filled with the long, steady unfolding of time, a world where nothing interrupts, nothing rushes, nothing competes for your attention. It is the kind of silence that invites reflection, not loneliness. A silence that gives room instead of taking it away. A silence that lets you listen inwardly, letting the mind exhale in long, calm waves. To imagine Mars is to imagine quiet made physical. Quiet you can touch, quiet you can walk upon, quiet carved into valleys and piled into dunes. A quiet so ancient and so deep that it could cradle your thoughts until they drift into sleep. As we continue deeper into the relaxing truths of this world, carry this silence with you. A silence that doesn't ask for stillness, but offers it freely, like a gentle hand resting lightly on your shoulder. High above the quiet plains of Mars, two tiny moons drift through the sky, Phobos and Deimos. They are not grand or brilliant like our own moon. They don't shine with smooth silver faces or paint the ground with bright nightlight. Instead, they move like modest companions, small and irregular, shaped less like celestial bodies and more like ancient stones carried gently through the heavens. Yet despite their size, there is something deeply calming about the way they travel. They don't rush, they don't twirl, they don't demand the sky's attention. They simply drift, silent, steady, serene, keeping watch over a world that has been quiet for a very long time. Phobos, the closer of the two, circles Mars with surprising speed. It orbits so quickly that it rises and sets more than once in a single Martian day. Imagine standing on the rust-red ground and watching it lift over the horizon. A small lopsided moon glowing faintly, wobbling just enough to seem alive. It climbs the sky, arcs quietly overhead, and then sinks again, only to rise once more hours later. Each pass feels like a soft greeting from a companion who checks in often, never lingering too long. Deimos, farther away, moves slower, gentle, patient, unhurried. It is the quieter of the two, dimmer, softer in its glow. It takes nearly 3 days to cross the sky, drifting like a pale lantern suspended far above the dust. Where Phobos feels like a quick touch on the shoulder, Deimos feels like a long, comforting presence, steady, reliable, restful. Together, They create a rhythm in the sky unlike anything on Earth. A dual choreography of quiet satellites, each moving at its own pace, each offering a different kind of calm. Imagine lying on the surface at dusk, the thin air cooling around you. The butterscotch sky fades into twilight blue. Stars begin to sharpen above you, crisp and bright in the dustless night. And then, softly, Phobos appears, a little stone moon glowing in the dim light. Hours later, after it has dipped beyond the horizon, Deimos follows, drifting slowly into view like a shy echo. They cast only faint shadows, soft enough to be missed unless you're looking closely. No sharp outlines, no dramatic illumination, just the lightest touch of moon glow brushing the edges of rocks and dunes. On a planet defined by stillness, the moons seem to mirror the landscape perfectly. Modest, quiet, full of gentle motion. There is also comfort in knowing that these moons have been with Mars for ages, companions in solitude. Phobos slowly spirals inward, inching closer to the planet each century. Deimos drifts outward, relaxed and drifting away slowly. Both movements are so gradual that entire civilizations on Earth could rise and fall without seeing any noticeable change. Their presence reminds us that relationships in the cosmos don't need to be dramatic to matter. A moon doesn't have to be large to be meaningful. Companionship doesn't have to be loud to be felt. Picture those two small moons above a red world, one racing gently across the sky, one floating slowly, patiently. Two stones carrying light through the night, offering quiet company to a planet where silence reigns. As you imagine their soft glow drifting overhead, let their gentle orbits echo in your breath, one quick, one slow, balancing each other like a peaceful rhythm of the Martian sky. When Phobos or Deimos pass between Mars and the Sun, the planet experiences something rare and delicate. Not the dramatic eclipses we know on Earth, but quiet dimmings of light, soft shadows that sweep across the surface like brief, gentle sighs. They are not total eclipses. They are not dark or overwhelming. They are small moments when the daylight softens, as if someone briefly placed a warm palm over the sun. Phobos, the closer moon, creates the more noticeable of these events. Its shadow glides across the Martian surface in a swift, fleeting motion. Because Phobos is small and lopsided, the shadow it casts looks less like a perfect circle and more like a soft, irregular blur, a shadow that feels more like a passing cloud than a celestial alignment. Imagine standing on a quiet plain when Phobos begins its swift transit. The sunlight dims by just a shade, not darkness, only a subtle shift, like someone turned a dial from bright to gentle. You lift your gaze and see the small moon slide across the disk of the sun, a tiny silhouette drifting in front of a pale golden glow. The whole event lasts only seconds, a brief exhale, a blink of cosmic time, and then the light returns, calm and unchanged. Deimos creates even softer shadows. Because it's farther away and smaller, its transits appear like faint smudges, fragile brushstrokes passing over the sun. Some observers describe them as ghost eclipses, so subtle you might miss them unless you were waiting for the exact moment. Deimos doesn't rush. It glides slowly, taking its time, and the shadow it casts moves over the land like a memory more than a change. These gentle dimmings are the kind of events you savour instead of chase. On Earth, a solar eclipse brings excitement, urgency, crowds gathering to witness dramatic alignment. But on Mars, the experience feels personal, like a soft shift in mood, a quiet turning of the day. No spectacle, no noise, just the light briefly lowering its voice. If you stood on Mars during one of these transits, the air around you would stay still. The ground would not tremble. The sky would not shift colour. Everything continues just as it was, only a little softer. and when the moon moves on, the world brightens again as gently as it dimmed. Rovers have captured these events, filming Phobos crossing the sun like a dark pebble gliding over a glowing coin. Each transit is a reminder that even in the vastness of space, small things can cast gentle shadows. That size does not define significance, and quiet events can hold their own kind of wonder. There's something deeply soothing about imagining a shadow drifting across a silent world. A shadow with no wind to push it, no clouds to join it, no sound to accompany its passing. A temporary hush in the daylight of a planet built for stillness. As you breathe in now, imagine the light around you dimming for a moment. Not enough to startle, just enough to soften the world. A passing shadow, a momentary pause, a reminder that even the sky has gentle moods. Then imagine the light, returning, warm and steady, as the tiny moon continues its quiet path across the Martian sky. The Martian sky has a subtle magic. It is never truly alone. Even on the quietest nights, even when the air is thin and the horizon glows faintly with dust, there is always company above. Two small moons drifting in gentle, uneven paths. Phobos and Deimos move through the sky like soft thoughts passing through a half-dreaming mind, appearing and disappearing with a rhythm that is uniquely their own. On Earth, the night sky often feels singular. One moon, one luminous presence shaping tides and twilight moods. But on Mars, the sky holds two companions, not bright, not perfect spheres, not grand markers of the night, but humble, shy bodies of stone. Their light is faint, but their presence is constant, creating a sense of calm companionship in a world defined by solitude. Imagine looking up from the edge of a crater as night settles. The stars grow sharper, clearer, more numerous in the thin atmosphere. The sky stretches wide and quiet above you. And then, like a small glowing ember, Phobos rises, swift, pale, imperfect in shape, but comforting in its familiarity. It arcs across the sky quickly, fading again beyond the horizon before you even grow used to its presence. Hours later, when the night has deepened and the silence feels even more profound, Deimos appears, smaller, dimmer, slower. It barely seems to move at first, like a distant memory slowly drifting into view. Where Phobos brings motion, Deimos brings serenity. Where Phobos feels like a fleeting thought, Deimos feels like a prolonged exhale. Together they create a rhythm, two different tempos layered over the quiet heartbeat of Mars. You could lie on the red dust for hours, watching them take turns crossing the sky. Phobos with its hurried grace, Deimos with its lingering drift. Their paths never clash. They weave gently, sharing the night with perfect, effortless harmony. On some nights, dust in the atmosphere softens their light even further. Blurring the edges of their glow, they appear as small smudges of brightness, hovering just above the horizon. Not sharp, not clear, but somehow even more soothing in their imperfection. A reminder that beauty doesn't always need symmetry or brilliance. Sometimes it's enough to simply be present. And when both moons are visible at once, the sky feels unique in a way that words struggle to capture. Two companions drifting through different arcs, two small guardians watching over a planet that rests in deep silence. Their combined glow is subtle, barely enough to cast shadows, but it's enough to ease the loneliness of the vast plains below. Imagine walking across a quiet Martian landscape with these two faint moons guiding you, one leading, one following, both offering gentle light in different parts of the sky. The ground beneath your feet is cold and soundless. The air is thin and still, and yet above you the sky feels full, not with noise or brightness, but with presence. Mars may be quiet, but it is not empty. Its sky holds company. Its nights hold companionship. Its horizons hold the soft comfort of twin moons drifting endlessly overhead. As you breathe now, imagine those two moons tracing their paths through a calm, dust-tinted sky, one swift, one gentle, balancing each other the way your inhalations and exhalations do, creating a rhythm that soothes without effort. Across the deserts and ice fields of Earth, scientists have found small pieces of Mars, fragments of the red planet that drifted through space for millions of years before finally settling onto our world. They are meteorites, but not just any meteorites. They are stones that began their journey on a distant, quiet planet, were lifted into space by ancient impacts, and eventually found a new resting place beneath our skies. They are pieces of Mars that crossed the void to meet us. It is soothing to imagine the story of one of these stones. Long ago, an asteroid struck Mars with enough force to send bits of rock flying upward, higher and higher, until they escaped the planet's gentle gravity. Those fragments did not scream across space, they drifted. They followed slow arcs through the dark, silent ocean between worlds, warmed only by faint sunlight and the memory of their home. Millions of years passed, stars shifted, planets moved, entire species rose and vanished on Earth, and still these small Martian travellers floated patiently, waiting for the moment when their paths would cross ours. When they finally fell to Earth, they arrived as quiet visitors. No fanfare, no announcement. Just small stones landing in deserts, in icy plains, or on quiet stretches of land. If you held one in your hand, it would look ordinary at first glance, dark, heavy, textured. But inside, in its minerals and trapped gases, lies a chemical fingerprint unmistakably Martian. Tiny bubbles sealed within the rock carry ancient air from Mars, preserved across time and space like a message in a bottle drifting across a cosmic sea. Imagine that. Air that last touched the Martian surface millions of years ago is now held in your palm. Dust and minerals formed under Martian skies now rest under Earth's sunlight. A quiet piece of another world, small enough to fit in your hand, yet carrying a story older than any human memory. There is something profoundly calming about this exchange. Two planets sharing fragments of themselves. Not through violence, but through time, through slow drifting, through patience, through the gentle pull of gravity. Mars sending pieces of its ancient past to a world that would eventually develop eyes, minds, and questions to study them. Some cultures imagine meteorites as gifts from the heavens. In this case, the metaphor feels beautifully literal. Earth receives tokens from Mars, small whispers of a distant landscape, reminders that even across the silence of space, worlds are not entirely alone. Scientists treasure these rocks because they reveal secrets about Mars, its volcanic history, its past climate, the minerals that shaped its surface. But beyond the science lies a quieter truth. These meteorites connect us. They collapse the distance we explored earlier. They show that pieces of Mars have already made the journey we dream of. That the void between our worlds is not a barrier, but a bridge. Picture one of these fragments resting on a table. Nothing moves, nothing glows. Yet inside that stone lies the quiet memory of a different sky, a colder sun, a world of red dust and blue frost, a world that has already reached out to us softly, without intention, without force. As you breathe now, imagine holding one of those ancient stones, warm from your touch, cold from its journey, and let its quiet endurance soothe you, a reminder that even across immense distance, gentle connections can be made. Long ago, Mars had a magnetic field, a protective, invisible shield that wrapped around the planet like a tender embrace. It wasn't as strong as Earth's, nor as enduring, but for millions of years it guarded the Martian sky, keeping its atmosphere warm, thick, and full of possibility. Today, that magnetic field is gone, but traces of it remain. preserved in ancient rocks like soft memories carried through deep time. Imagine walking across a quiet Martian plain, unaware that beneath your feet lie stones holding whispers of an older world. These rocks, solidified from lava billions of years ago, cooled during a time when Mars still had a global magnetic field. As they hardened, they locked in the direction of that ancient magnetism like tiny compass needles frozen inside stone. They have held those orientations ever since, unmoved by wind or frost or the slow settling of dust. There is something touching about this. A planet that has lost its shield still carries reminders of when it existed. A world that appears cold and silent still holds echoes of a warmer era, not erased, just quiet. On Earth, magnetic fields carve paths for birds, shape auroras, and shield our atmosphere from harsh solar winds. On Mars, the absence of a magnetic field allowed the atmosphere to slowly drift away into space. The planet cooled, water disappeared, but the story didn't vanish. It settled into the crust, layer by layer, mineral by mineral. If you could hold one of these ancient rocks, you wouldn't feel any magnetism at all. It's far too subtle, far too weak for ordinary senses. But deep within its grains, electrons remain aligned in patterns that speak of a long-lost force. A memory not of noise or motion, but of alignment, of order shaped by the gentle influence of a planetary heartbeat long faded. NASA's orbiters can detect these magnetic remnants from above, mapping patches of magnetized crust like constellations scattered across the surface. Each patch represents an area where the stone still remembers, where magnetism once flowed, where Mars carried a protective warmth within an invisible field of power. These magnetic regions are strongest in the southern hemisphere, where ancient crust remains largely untouched by volcanic resurfacing. They stretch across valleys and highlands, quiet and undisturbed. Scientists believe that if you could walk across one of these zones, you might be stepping through the oldest memories the planet has to offer. A landscape layered not just with dust, but with history. The idea of a planet remembering is strangely comforting, even after losing so much atmosphere, warmth, flowing water. Mars still carries traces of its past within itself. It holds its stories the way old trees hold rings beneath their bark, or the way canyon walls hold lines that mark each passing age. You could sit on a large boulder, the sky pale gold above you, and imagine the magnetic field that once shimmered invisibly around the planet. Imagine the warmth it held in place. Imagine the way the northern lights might have danced faintly across Martian skies eons ago. We will never see those auroras as they once were, but their possibility lingers. In the quiet of that thought, there is peace. Mars teaches us that even when something is lost, its imprint can remain. That change doesn't erase everything. Some parts stay, quietly tucked into stone, waiting for someone to notice. As you inhale slowly, imagine the planet holding on to these soft memories, keeping them safe beneath layers of dust. Let that image remind you that even in silence, even in stillness, a world can remember. Every world holds its history somewhere. On Earth, stories are written in forests, in oceans, in the shifting dance of weather and life. But on Mars, the stories are written in stone. Rocks are its archives, its diaries, its quiet storytellers. They carry the memory of water, the whisper of volcanic fire, the marks of wind that has blown softly for ages. To look at a Martian rock is to see a page in a book written over billions of years. Slow, deliberate, patient. Most of the stones on Mars have never been touched by life, but they are not empty. They are full of structure and texture, layers pressed together in patterns that hold clues about the planet's ancient past. Some rocks formed from lava, cooling slowly into smooth, dark surfaces. Others were shaped by water long gone. Sediments settled gently at the bottom of the old lakes, compressed over time into delicate thin sheets of stone. Each one is a quiet witness to a different chapter. Imagine kneeling beside a flat, layered rock on the Martian surface. The air is thin, the ground cold, the silence absolute. You run a gloved hand across its surface and feel the gentle grooves left by water that once flowed freely. These layers formed grain by grain, as if Mars once allowed its waters to rest, to settle, to breathe. A world that once held lakes calm enough for sediments to fall quietly through the water column, touching down gently like snowflakes landing on still ground. Some rocks show the marks of minerals that could only have formed in watery environments: clays, sulfates, carbonates. These minerals are like signatures, proof that Mars was once warmer, wetter, more hospitable than the silent desert it is today. They remind us that the dry plains we see now were once the floors of tranquil lakes and winding rivers, not rushing torrents, not crashing waves, but slow, shallow waters that might have reflected soft light beneath ancient Martian skies. Then there are the rocks shaped not by water, but by wind. Fine particles of dust carried over miles by gentle breezes have etched the surfaces of stones, smoothing them, softening them, carving faint lines that only a patient observer would notice. The wind on Mars does its work slowly, like a sculptor who cares more about time than speed. Rovers have photographed stones that cracked in the cold, splitting into geometric shapes, not from abrupt force, but from centuries of temperature changes, each freeze and thaw a delicate adjustment. These rocks create patterns that seem almost intentional, like quiet mosaics arranged by nature's hand. And beneath the soil lie rocks that never see the sun at all, buried layers that hold even older stories. Stories from the planet's earliest moments, when volcanoes were active, when the core was warmer, when the magnetic field hummed softly across the surface. We cannot see those layers directly, but we know they exist, waiting beneath the dust. There is a deep calm in imagining a world that keeps its memories in stone, a world that doesn't rush to rewrite itself, a world where history settles gently, piece by piece, into solid form. As you breathe slowly now, picture those rocks resting in the quiet light, red, brown, gold, layered with stories, a planet holding its past with patience, offering it not loudly but softly to anyone who takes the time to look. Much of Mars is shaped by ancient lava, not the fierce explosive kind we often imagine, but slow, steady flows that once moved silently across the surface like thick, dark rivers. These lava plains, called mare-like basalt fields, have long since cooled into smooth, broad stretches of rock. But even now, millions of years after they hardened, they keep the soft memory of motion in their shape. Their slopes are gentle, their lines are subtle, their forms are calm. Imagine stepping onto one of these plains. The ground beneath your feet feels solid and unbroken, like the floor of an ancient hall. There are no jagged cliffs, no sharp outcrops, just wide, flowing curves where molten rock once drifted in slow waves. The surface stretches in every direction, undisturbed except by thin dust and the soft imprint of time. You could walk for hours without encountering a steep drop, just gentle rises, gentle falls, a quiet landscape shaped by long cooled fire. When lava flowed on Mars, it didn't roar or explode. It spread. It expanded in calm sheets, pushed outward by heat deep within the planet, but moving with the patience of thick honey. Some flows travelled for hundreds of kilometres before settling into the shapes we see today. They carried warmth, but not aggression, motion, but not chaos. Mars's low gravity helped them spread thin and wide, creating plains that feel more like soft blankets than frozen rivers. If you were to stand at the edge of an ancient lava tube, one of the hollow channels left behind when the outer part of a lava flow cooled while molten rock still moved inside, You might feel as though you were witnessing a moment frozen in time. The arches of these tubes curve gently, smooth and rounded, like the quiet interior of a cave sculpted by steady flowing breath. Some of these tubes are so large that they could hold cathedrals inside them, yet they formed not through violence, but through slow, measured movement. Sunlight falling across these planes creates soft gradients of colour, deep rust, muted brown, golden patches where dust has settled thin. The surface is often smoother than surrounding terrain, and because of this, shadows stretch gracefully over it at dawn and dusk. The long, thin shadows make the land appear almost fluid, as if the leather might still be warm beneath the crust. Rovers have driven across these plains, their wheels leaving faint tracks in the fine dust. Even those tracks feel temporary, destined to be softened by time and wind. It's humbling to imagine how many millennia have passed since the lava last moved, and how quietly the plains have rested since then, untouched by rain, unshaken by tectonics, unscarred by forests or floods. Some of the oldest lava plains on Mars date back billions of years, older than the continents we stand on, older than life as we know it. They are among the planet's most enduring features, holding the record of a time when Mars was warmer and more geologically alive. Yet even then, its volcanic nature expressed itself more through spreading calm than explosive drama. To imagine these plains is to imagine time made solid, heat turned into stillness, movement frozen into gentle curves, a world that once flowed slowly, now resting in quiet, expansive peace. As you breathe deeply now, picture yourself walking across one of these ancient lava seas, each step steady, each shadow soft, the horizon stretching in quiet arcs. Let the calm of those long-cooled flows settle into your thoughts, reminding you that even the hottest forces in nature can leave behind landscapes of profound stillness. Across the quiet face of Mars, there are patterns carved not by rushing rivers or shifting plates, but by the gentlest artist the planet has ever known, the wind. A thin, almost fragile atmosphere may not carry much force, but over millions of years, even soft winds can leave delicate signatures. And on Mars, this slow, persistent movement of air has sculpted ridges that stretch across the land like ancient brushstrokes. These formations are called yardangs, long, streamlined ridges carved out of soft rock. They point in the direction of the prevailing wind, all lined up in quiet, parallel rows. At first glance, they seem almost intentional, as if placed there by a patient hand repeating the same stroke again and again. But their beauty comes from natural persistence, not design. From wind that never rushes, but never stops. Imagine walking among these ridges. The ground rises and falls in slow, rhythmic waves beneath your feet. Each ridge curves gently, its edges smoothed by countless seasons of dust brushing past. No two are exactly the same, yet all share the same graceful alignment, a family of shapes created by the soft choreography of a thin, steady breeze. In the silence of Mars you would hear almost nothing as the wind moves, a faint hiss at most, the sound of dust grains slipping over stone, but the evidence of its work surrounds you. Every groove, every ripple, every softly carved slope tells the story of air that has flowed across this landscape for ages. The ridges rise taller in some places, small enough to step over in others. Some stretch for hundreds of meters, their shadows long and calm in the low Martian sun. They resemble the ripples left on a sandy beach after a low tide. Only here, the tide is time and the water is the wind. What's soothing is that these ridges form without haste. They are shaped grain by grain, molecule by molecule, by the quiet persistence of nature. It's a reminder that change does not always need to be dramatic. Sometimes it comes from gentle repetition, from subtle movement, from the slow work of soft forces. As you continue walking, the ridge fields begin to look like frozen waves, a sea without water, a tide without sound. The colours shift in warm tones, muted apricot, deep rust, faint ochre dusted across the slopes. When the sun is low, the ridges glow softly on one side and fade into long shadows on the other, creating a calm rhythm of light and dark across the land. Orbiters have captured images of these patterns from above, showing their elegance in full. From the sky, the ridges resemble the wrinkles of a sleeping world, creases formed by the planet's long, deep breaths. There is symmetry in their formation, but also softness, order, but never rigidity. Sometimes dust storms move across the ridges, adding new layers of fine particles. These storms do not reshape the land quickly, they merely brush it with new tones, new textures, gently renewing the canvas. And long after the storms fade, the wind resumes its careful, patient work, continuing the art it has practiced for billions of years. To imagine these wind-carved ridges is to imagine time slowed to its quietest pace, a landscape shaped not by force, but by softness, by the persistence of something that barely makes a sound. As you breathe now, imagine your thoughts being shaped the same way, gently, slowly, smoothed by calm repetition. Let each exhale be like a soft breeze across the mind, carving small ridges of peace where rest can settle easily. On Mars, the wind is usually gentle, a faint breath that drifts quietly across the plains. But every so often that breath curls upward, spiraling into a delicate column of motion, a dust devil, not violent, not dangerous, but graceful. A small vortex lifting fine grains of red dust into the thin air, twirling softly across the silent landscape. Dust devils on Mars form when sunlight warms the ground enough to heat the air just above it. The warm air rises, cool air slips beneath it, and a tiny swirl begins to spin. On Earth, these little whirlwinds can be playful or surprising. On Mars, they are poetry, slender columns twisting slowly across a world that rarely moves. Imagine standing alone on a quiet plain when you see one in the distance, a thin, spiraling shape, like a reddish ribbon rising toward the butterscotch sky. It glides rather than spins, it drifts rather than storms. Its motion is slow, almost contemplative, as if the planet were exhaling in a gentle spiral. The dust lifted into the air is incredibly fine, soft as flour, ancient as the world itself. It dances inside the swirling column, rising and falling like ash in a candle flame. Even the tallest Martian dust devils, stretching a kilometre high, remain calm and quiet. Their rotation is gentle, their movement glacial, their presence subtle. If one passed close to you, the experience would be serene, not startling. You might feel a soft tug of wind, a faint brushing of dust across your clothing. The column of swirling grains would cast a thin, wavering shadow on the ground, a shadow that flickers slightly as it moves past, like the shifting reflection of a distant flame. Rovers have captured images of these dust devils, watching them drift across craters and plains. Sometimes they appear in groups, several small vortices moving together, weaving through each other like dancers in slow motion. They leave faint trails in the dust, soft lines that mark where they've passed. But these lines fade quickly, brushed away by the next gentle breeze. There is something peaceful about a vortex that leaves no damage behind. On Earth, swirling winds often carry destruction. On Mars, they carry only dust. Dust that was already drifting, already wandering, already seeking places to settle. The wind simply lifts it for a moment, gives it a dance, then sets it back down gently. Some dust devils help clean the solar panels of rovers, sweeping away accumulated dust and extending their lives. A quiet gift from the planet, a soft, swirling reminder that even small forces can make a difference. Not through power, but through presence. Watching a dust devil on Mars is like watching time move, slow, predictable, calm. You could follow its path with your eyes, breathing in rhythm with its steady, spiralling ascent. Nothing sharp, nothing sudden, just a patient twist of air rising into the sky. Picture yourself sitting on a low rock as one drifts nearby. The sun is dim above you. The landscape glows faintly. The dust devil moves with grace, swirling a few meters away, the grains sparkling in the light. It passes without hurry, without sound, without leaving a mark. When it fades, the air returns to stillness, and the plain stretches quietly once more. As you breathe now, imagine your thoughts twirling as softly as these Martian dust devils, rising gently, swirling lightly, then settling again into calm, undisturbed silence. Some of the quietest places on Mars are those where sunlight rarely reaches, deep inside craters, sheltered beneath overhangs, tucked into pockets where shadows linger for years, decades, even centuries. In these cold, unmoving corners, ice hides. Not the bright, glittering caps of the poles, not the frost that blooms at dawn, but ancient reserves of frozen water or carbon dioxide resting in darkness like secrets the planet keeps close to its heart. This hidden ice does not announce itself. It doesn't shine under open skies or reflect golden sunsets. It stays tucked away, preserved by constant chill, by stillness, by the gentle quiet of places unreachable by warmth. Some of it lies only a few centimeters beneath the dust. Other deposits hide meters below, sealed under layers that have remained untouched for eons. Imagine walking along the rim of a crater just after sunrise. The inside walls slope down into a deep, cold basin where the sun's fragile warmth can't quite reach. As you descend, the air grows colder, the light dimmer. Reddish dust covers everything, but at the base, in a pocket of unbroken shade, there's a faint glimmer. Not bright, just a soft, muted shimmer. Ice resting quietly where light almost never touches. The ground beneath your feet is powdery, but the air feels still, heavier with cold. You brush your gloved hand across the dusty surface and reveal a thin, pale layer beneath. Frozen, solid, patient. It has waited there for seasons and seasons, untouched by wind, guarded by shadow. What's soothing is the idea that even on a planet as dry and silent as Mars, hidden reservoirs of calm persist in the dark. Places where nothing melts, nothing evaporates, nothing changes quickly. A world that offers stability where you least expect it, in its coldest, quietest corners. Some shadows on Mars remain cold enough that ice can survive for millions of years. These are called cold traps, places where the temperature barely rises above freezing even at midday. Within them, ice lies preserved like memory of past climates, past seasons, past ages. Scientists believe that some of these hidden deposits might be relics of ancient frosts untouched since the time when Mars was warmer and wetter. Orbiters have glimpsed these icy patches using special instruments that detect water and carbon dioxide beneath the surface. What they reveal looks like soft blue glows hidden under thin layers of soil, like buried lanterns that never light up but never fade away. Imagine the quiet inside one of these sheltered pockets. No sound, no wind, only the faint crackle of ice expanding and contracting as temperatures shift ever so slightly. Every movement is subtle. Every change takes centuries. The ice simply rests, held gently by the cold that surrounds it. There is peace in this idea, peace in knowing that stillness can preserve, that darkness can protect, that places untouched by light can still hold beauty. In a world shaped by dust, by wind, by ancient fire, the shadows hold something softer, a memory of water, of potential, of a past that refuses to disappear entirely. As you breathe slowly now, imagine being in that dim, quiet crater, surrounded by silence, standing on frozen layers that have remained unchanged for ages, Let the coolness of that thought settle into your mind like a gentle pause, reminding you that even in hidden places calm endures. Not all the water on Mars lies as ice. Some of it is hidden even more quietly, locked within the very minerals that make up the Martian soil, bound to molecules tucked into crystal structures, held in place like tiny memories woven into stone. It is water that doesn't flow, doesn't freeze, doesn't shine. It simply rests, subtle, silent, stored within the rocks themselves. On Earth, minerals can hold water too, in clays, in salts, in volcanic glass. But on Mars, this hidden water carries a special calm. It represents a world conserving what little moisture it has left, tucking it gently into the smallest spaces, preserving it in stillness. A planet caring for its last traces of warmth. Imagine kneeling in a field of fine Martian dust, scooping up a handful of soil. To your eyes, it looks dry as powdered rust, dry as the quiet horizon stretching around you. Yet if you could examine it closely, molecule by molecule, you would find that beneath its dryness, water is present, not flowing, not visible, but held inside tiny grains like whispers trapped in crystal. These hydrated minerals formed long ago when Mars had liquid water on its surface, back when rivers ran through valleys and lakes shimmered under a warmer sky. As water interacted with volcanic rocks, it altered them slowly, locking tiny amounts of moisture inside. These minerals became time capsules, memories of a wetter world sealed within solid form. Some of the most intriguing minerals are clays which only form when water lingers, not for minutes, not for hours, but for thousands of years. For Mars to create clay, its water must once have stayed long enough to reshape the land, long enough to soak into rocks and alter their very structure. The presence of clay is a gentle reminder. Mars once allowed water to stay. Picture exploring a dry ravine, your footsteps soft on the dusty ground. You lean down to pick up a small rock, its surface smooth and dull. Inside that rock, hidden between layers invisible to the eye, molecules of water cling quietly. Though millions of years have passed since they last touched liquid, they remain, held, preserved, resting in silence. Rovers like Curiosity and Perseverance have drilled into rocks to examine this hidden water. Their instruments detect hints of hydrogen, tiny signatures that reveal the presence of bound moisture. Each discovery is not loud or dramatic, but soft, steady confirmation that Mars keeps its past close, even when it appears barren. This water will never drip or flow again unless it is released by extreme heat. It will never freeze into frost on the surface or gather into crystals. Instead, it sleeps within minerals, comfortable in the stillness of solid form. And there is a kind of peace in that, a world holding on to its memories like a quiet keepsake. Imagine the comfort of knowing that even the driest landscapes contain hidden depths, that even when something seems empty, it can hold quiet reserves of what once was. Mars teaches this lesson gently. What appears barren may hold something soft inside. What seems lifeless may contain whispers of its history. As you breathe slowly now, imagine those tiny pockets of water resting inside stone, cool, quiet, unchanged for ages. Let the thought settle into you, a reminder that even within stillness, something essential can remain, tucked safely away where time moves softly. If you look at certain regions of Mars from above, you can see shapes so familiar they almost tug at memory. Wide basins, smooth-edged depressions, inlet channels branching like veins. Features that look unmistakably like the quiet basins of long-vanished lakes. And that is what many of them were, calm bodies of water that once rested on the Martian surface, reflecting pale skies and holding the promise of gentler times. Mars was not always dry. There were ages, billions of years ago, when liquid water pooled in lowlands, spread across shallow plains, and settled into craters shaped perfectly for holding it. These lakes were not deep like oceans, nor turbulent like stormy seas. They were likely shallow, still, delicate, perhaps more like broad, silent puddles than anything else. But their presence changed the world, carving places of quiet beauty into the red landscape. Imagine standing at the edge of one of these ancient lake beds today. The ground is flat beneath your feet, smooth in a way that only water can create. Sediment lies in thin, even layers, like pages gently pressed together. You can picture the water as it once was, still as glass, barely rippling beneath the soft light of a young sun. The breeze would have carried the faintest chill. The sky, dusty even then, might have glowed in warm tones above the shimmering surface. Some lake beds show clear shorelines, gentle arcs etched into stone. Others contain fan-shaped deltas, signatures of streams that once flowed steadily into the basin. Each delta formed not through violent floods, but through slow, persistent trickles of water depositing fine sediments. Grain by grain, moment by moment, a record of patient movement. In Gale Crater, where the Curiosity rover has wandered for years, scientists found layers of clay and silt arranged exactly as they would form at the bottom of a calm lake. Thin laminations, each marking a quiet cycle of deposition, perhaps annual, perhaps seasonal. Each layer a soft memory of water resting, evaporating, returning, a rhythm, a pulse. These lakes were likely transient, appearing when the climate warmed and fading when it cooled. But even their brief existence required conditions far gentler than today's Mars. Thicker air, warmer temperatures, a world capable of holding liquid water on its surface. A world that, in its youth, knew how to cradle softness. Some scientists imagine early Mars as a place of misty mornings and long cool afternoons, where shallow lakes caught the pale sunlight and reflected it back into the sky, where ripples carried by faint winds moved slowly across the surface, where dust settled gently into still waters, sinking without sound. There is peace in imagining this version of Mars, a world not defined by silence alone, but by the quiet presence of water, calm, collected, unhurried. Water that shaped the land softly, leaving behind smooth basins that still whisper of its touch. Even now, long after the lakes disappeared, the evidence remains in ways that feel almost tender. Ridges that mark ancient shorelines, sediment fans that resemble fragile leaves pressed into stone, minerals that only form in standing water, a planet remembering itself in the language of geology. As you breathe now, picture yourself standing at the middle of a dry Martian lake bed. The sky above is vast and muted. The ground beneath is smooth and gentle, and though the lake is gone, you can almost sense the stillness it once held. A mirror of soft light, a bowl of quiet, a world holding its breath in water. Let that imagined calm settle into you, reminding you that even lost things can leave peaceful traces behind. Long before Mars became the quiet, dust-tinted world we know today, its sky was very different. Not thin, not bare, not the fragile veil of atmosphere that now lets cold seep into every corner. Billions of years ago, Mars may have worn a much thicker cloak of air, a sky softened by clouds layered with mist touched by warmth. A past where the heavens above the red plains were not empty, but full. Imagine looking up at that ancient Martian sky. Instead of the pale, butterscotch glow we see today, you might have seen drifting clouds, not towering thunderheads like on Earth, but wide, gentle sheets of vapour. Clouds formed from water, from ice crystals, from particles carried upward by a warmer, denser atmosphere. They would have glowed softly at sunrise, painting the sky in muted hues of gold and rose. And at dusk they would have caught the fading light, turning the sky into a quiet canvas of purples and deep blues. This thick atmosphere would have held warmth close to the surface, letting rivers flow, lakes gather, and seasons unfold at a slower, gentler pace. The air would have felt more present, not heavy, but comforting, like the soft pressure of a blanket or the warm hush of a morning fog. Some scientists believe that Mars might once have experienced rain. Not storms, not downpours, but thin, delicate drizzles that fell slowly through the air. Raindrops shaped by a weaker gravity, drifting toward the ground with almost impossible gentleness. Imagine that. Rain falling so softly that each drop felt like a tiny glimmer, landing without a sound on ancient soil. Even if rain was rare, clouds were almost certainly common. Roving instruments and orbiters have detected minerals on the surface that could only have formed in the presence of a warmer, wetter atmosphere. And high-resolution scans show ancient valley networks that hint at long-lost climates. Climates where clouds gathered, where mists formed, where weather carried the memory of water. Today Mars still has clouds, but they are thin, fleeting, delicate. High-altitude ice clouds shimmer in the early morning light, drifting like ghostly veils across the sky. Sometimes dust storms create vast, diffuse cloud layers that wrap the planet in muted colour. But compared to the ancient skies, these are echoes, soft reminders of a past that has grown quiet. Imagine standing on the Martian surface during that earlier age. The world is not harsh, the cold is gentler, the light is filtered through layers of soft vapour. You breathe in the air, still thin by Earth standards, but far richer than today, and feel the warmth brushing your face. Above you, clouds move with slow, graceful motions, their edges dissolving gently into the sky. No thunder, no lightning. Just the calm drift of moisture through a world at peace. And now, imagine the present. The clouds are rare, faint, almost shy. But when they do appear, they carry with them an ancient resonance. They are reminders that even the quietest planets once had stories full of motion and softness, that even dry worlds once held mist and wind and shifting skies. There is comfort in this thought, the idea that Mars remembers its past not through loud evidence, but through subtle traces. A mineral here, a valley there, a thin cloud drifting across dawn. As you breathe slowly now, imagine those ancient clouds floating through Martian air, their softness lingering in every layer of atmosphere that survives today. Let that imagined sky settle into your thoughts, a sky that held warmth, held water, held the gentle breath of a younger world. There is a quiet sadness woven into Mars's history, not a sharp grief, not a sudden loss, but a slow drifting away, like warmth leaving a room long after the fire has gone out. Mars was once warmer. It was once wrapped in a thicker atmosphere, its surface shaped by flowing water, its skies touched by softer light. But over billions of years, that warmth faded, not abruptly, not violently, just gradually, gently, inevitably. Imagine a planet cooling over ages, the core once hot and active slowly quieting, the magnetic field weakening, then fading, like the last ember of a long-burning coal. Without that magnetic shield, the solar, wind began to brush away the atmosphere molecule by molecule, not tearing, not ripping, just carrying the air off into space in a slow, steady drift. With less air came more cold. Rivers evaporated or froze, lakes dried into smooth basins. Rain, if it ever fell, stopped. Clouds thinned. What remained was a world that grew quieter with every passing million years. A world closing its eyes gently, settling into a long sleep beneath thin skies. But this fading was peaceful. Mars did not collapse into chaos. It simply exhaled its warmth and never inhaled again. A slow transition from a world with weather to a world shaped mostly by time, dust, and memory. Picture standing in a shallow valley that once held water. The ground is flat, rimmed by soft slopes. The air is cold, but not harsh. The silence feels layered, as if built from centuries of stillness. You look around and sense the ghost of warmth. Not physically, but in the shape of the land, in the minerals beneath your feet, in the patterns etched into stone. That warmth is gone now, but its story remains everywhere. In ancient riverbeds curving across the plains, in minerals that formed only in liquid water, in the delicate sediments of long evaporated lakes. Mars may be cold today, but it remembers itself. The planet holds its past the way a quiet person holds old letters, not displayed, but kept, preserved, cherished. There is a gentle beauty in the idea of a world slowly accepting its stillness. Mars didn't resist its cooling. It didn't rage against the loss of its atmosphere. It simply adapted, settling into a new identity, a place of frost, dust, and serene horizons. A planet that once hosted flowing water now holds stillness as its defining feature. And yet, even in this fading, Mars did not lose everything. It kept its landscapes, it kept its rocks, its canyons, its volcanoes. It kept tiny hints of water locked in minerals and hidden as ice in shadows. It kept its 2 little moons. It kept the traces of its magnetic past. It kept its soft light. A world can change profoundly and still retain quiet pieces of what it once was. Scientists call this slow transformation atmospheric escape, but the phrase feels too clinical for what truly happened. Mars didn't escape anything. It drifted, it cooled, it rested. And in this resting, it became the tranquil world we know today, a place where silence is ancient, where cold is gentle, where the past is written in every ridge and ripple of stone. As you breathe in now, imagining the slow fading of warmth from an entire planet, let the thoughts settle softly in your mind, not as sorrow, but as acceptance, a reminder that even great changes can happen quietly, gently, without breaking the calm of a world. As Mars cooled and its atmosphere thinned, the world began a slow transformation, not into emptiness, but into desert. Not the blistering deserts of Earth, shaped by relentless heat and shimmering horizons, but a quiet desert, vast, cold, ancient, and still. A desert sculpted not by sunlight, but by time, not by scorching winds, but by the soft settling of dust over billions of years. To imagine Mars is to imagine the essence of a desert stripped down to its purest form. Endless plains of sand the colour of faded embers, dunes rising in gentle waves, rocky plateaus resting under skies painted in muted hues. A horizon that feels infinite, yet somehow intimate. Empty, but never threatening. Mars did not become a desert overnight. It happened gradually, as moisture retreated into minerals and ice, as atmosphere drifted into space, as warmth seeped slowly away. Each step of the transformation was quiet, each change subtle. No sudden collapse, just a planet easing into stillness, grain by grain, layer by layer. Imagine walking across this landscape. Your footsteps leave soft prints in the fine dust, marks that will remain until the faint Martian wind gently smooths them away. The air is thin, cool, almost delicate against your face. The silence around you feels deeper than any desert on Earth. No insects, no rustling plants, no distant echoes. Just the steady rhythm of your breath, the soft crunch of dust under your boots, and the endless red plain stretching before you. The dunes themselves move, but very slowly, so slowly that you would have to wait years to notice a single shift. They creep forward under the guidance of winds that whisper rather than roar. Some dunes form graceful crescents, others stretch into long parallel lines, ripples shaped by a patient planet. Even in motion, the Martian desert remains gentle. There are deserts on Earth that feel harsh, unforgiving, overwhelming. Mars's desert is different. It is cool, measured, respectful, a place where nothing rushes, a place where time moves with a softness that invites reflection rather than fear. And yet, despite its vastness, the Martian desert feels strangely intimate. Without vegetation, without animals, without noise, every small detail becomes noticeable. The curve of a dune, the shape of a pebble, the subtle gradient of dust on a slope, the soft glow of sunset turning red sand into warm gold. Rocks scattered across the plains tell stories of ancient lava and forgotten impacts. Dust settled into thin layers records the shifting seasons. Even the smallest grains carry memories, traces of minerals shaped by water long gone. The desert of Mars is not empty. It is full of quiet history. There is also comfort in knowing that deserts are not signs of lifelessness, but of endurance. On Earth, deserts host some of the most resilient forms of life. And on Mars, scientists believe that if life ever existed, its traces might still linger in these dry, undisturbed landscapes. Perhaps hidden in sheltered nooks, held in minerals, preserved in places untouched for ages. Mars is a desert now, but not a dead one. It is a resting world, a world in a long pause, a world holding its breath, a world shaped by the slow poetry of dust and wind. As you breathe gently now, imagine the calm stretching across this desert planet. Imagine the stillness. Imagine the soft expanse of red dunes under a pale sky. Let that desert settle in your mind like a warm, quiet emptiness. Peaceful, open, infinite. Every planet has a colour that defines it. Earth is blue, softened by oceans and atmosphere. Jupiter is striped in creams and browns, swirling in perpetual motion. But Mars is red. A deep, muted, ancient red that blankets its valleys, dunes and plains. A colour born not from fire or heat, but from rust. Iron-rich dust weathered over billions of years into gentle shades of cinnamon, apricot and ember. To stand on Mars, even in imagination, is to be surrounded by horizons dipped in this quiet red. The colour doesn't shout, it doesn't burn, it glows, soft and steady, like the last warm light of a long sunset. It is the colour of calm, the colour of endurance, the colour of a planet that has weathered ages in silence. The dust that paints Mars red is incredibly fine, almost silky. It settles onto everything: stones, rover tracks, the rims of craters, creating a uniform softness across the landscape. When sunlight filters through the thin atmosphere, rich with suspended particles, it gives the entire sky a warm, diffuse glow. Even midday feels like dawn. Even dawn feels like a memory of firelight. Imagine walking across a plateau as the sun rises behind you. The land stretches out in long folds of red, fading into gentle gradients of orange and muted gold. Distant mountains look softened, their edges blurred by dust. Shadows fall long and cool across the ground, their contrast subdued by the warm filter of the air. The world feels painted, not with sharp strokes, but with soft blending, like pastels brushed across a quiet canvas. This red dust has travelled far. Martian winds lift it into the air and carry it across the planet, letting it drift for weeks before settling again. It fills the thin sky with a hazy hue, tinting every horizon with the same gentle warmth. You could walk for miles and never escape the red, but the colour never feels repetitive. It changes with the light. In morning it glows softly. At noon it warms into brighter tones. At dusk it deepens into rich, quiet shades of crimson and wine. The horizon on Mars curves gently, more noticeably than on Earth, thanks to the planet's smaller size. This subtle curvature adds to the sense of vastness, as if each red horizon is folding the world into a calm embrace. Standing there, you feel both small and deeply held by the land. Sometimes dust storms sweep across the plains, their edges tinted in deeper reds. These storms are not violent from the ground. They move slowly, spreading like soft tinted fog. Even when they cover the entire planet, they mute rather than overwhelm. The red becomes subdued, turning into a muted amber haze that transforms day into a warm twilight. Rovers have captured sunsets and sunrises on Mars that reveal a beautiful contrast. While the land glows red, the sun itself often sets in a cool shade of blue. Dust in the atmosphere scatters warm light away from the centre of the sun, leaving a pale blue halo that feels almost magical. The blue sun framed by red soil, a calm, surreal pairing found nowhere else in the solar system. Red on Mars is not a harsh colour. It is gentle, persistent, softened by time, a colour that seems to breathe with the planet, shifting with every hour, whispering the story of iron and dust and patience. As you breathe now, imagine those red horizons stretching out from you in all directions. Warm, quiet, endless. Let the colour settle in your mind like embers in a hearth, calming, steady, peaceful. On Earth, sunsets glow in shades of gold, orange, and deep red, warm colours that fade slowly into night. But on Mars, the world transforms in a different way. The sky, usually tinted in soft reds and dusty apricots, shifts at sunset into something startlingly gentle. A cool bloom of blue around the setting sun, like a quiet flame burning in reverse. This phenomenon happens because of the extremely fine dust suspended in the thin Martian atmosphere. The dust scatters sunlight differently than air on Earth. Instead of scattering blue light outward, as our sky does, the Martian dust allows blue light to pass through, while scattering warm colours away. The result is a sunset rimmed in soft cobalt, an inversion of what we know, a celestial whisper of cool fire. Imagine standing alone on a Martian plain as the day begins to dim. The sky around you glows in its familiar warm hues, dusty rose, muted amber, gentle terracotta. The ground is still red, still calm, still absorbing the last warmth of the sun. But at the very edge of the horizon, the sun itself becomes a small, pale disk wrapped in blue. The light doesn't blaze, it glimmers, steady and soft, like a distant lantern flickering behind a curtain of frost. As the sun sinks lower, the blue halo grows deeper. It spreads upward just a little, brushing the sky in delicate, cool tones, mingling quietly with the warm colours that remain. The contrast is soothing, not jarring. Warm red below, cool blue above. A gentle meeting of opposites, like warm breath meeting cold air. The moment is fleeting. The blue glow lasts only a few minutes, fading as soon as the sun dips below the horizon. But in those few minutes the world feels transformed, wrapped in a calm, otherworldly light that seems almost like a dream. Imagine watching this sunset from the slope of a crater. Shadows stretch long behind you, soft and pale. The air grows colder, but not abruptly. Dust hangs suspended like mist, carrying colour across the sky. The sun slowly disappears, and the blue fire around it fades into a deepening twilight. Stars begin to emerge, sharper, brighter than on Earth, piercing the thin atmosphere with crisp clarity. Rovers on Mars have captured these sunsets in quiet images. The sun small and distant, the blue glow cool and faint, the dusty sky blending warm and cool tones with gentle ease. Every photograph feels calm, peaceful, like a planet whispering goodnight in muted colours. The beauty of a Martian sunset is not in its intensity, but in its subtlety. It doesn't overwhelm the senses, it lulls them. It invites a long, slow breath, an exhale that drifts with the fading light. And when night finally settles, it does so softly. The sky shifts from warm to blue to deep, velvety black, dotted with stars that shimmer steadily over the red land. Phobos may cross overhead at a quick pace, casting faint shadows. Deimos may linger at the edges of sight, but the quiet after sunset is absolute, a stillness that feels complete and comforting. As you breathe gently now, imagine that blue halo glowing at the edge of the universe, a cool flame burning in perfect silence, marking the close of another long Martian day. Let that soft, inverted sunset settle into your thoughts like a calm blue sigh, easing you into deeper rest. When night settles over Mars, it does so with a clarity that feels almost unreal. There is no thick atmosphere to blur the view, no moisture to soften the starlight, no city glow to dim the horizon. The sky becomes a deep, velvet dome of black, and every star appears with sharp, crystalline brilliance, as if each point of light were carefully etched into the night by a patient hand. On Earth, stars twinkle because air currents bend their light. On Mars, the air is too thin for that. Starlight arrives steady and unwavering, as though the cosmos is holding its breath. You can almost imagine tracing the lines between constellations with perfect accuracy, following each point of light as if it were a bead on a quiet cosmic thread. Imagine lying on your back on the cool Martian ground after sunset. The dust beneath you feels firm but soft, like dried clay sprinkled with powder. The air is cold, but it doesn't press against you. It simply exists, light and delicate. Above you, the first stars appear quickly, growing brighter as the sky deepens. Within minutes, the heavens feel overwhelmingly present. Not loud, not imposing, but intimately close. The Milky Way stretches across the sky like a river of frost. Its light is crisp, clean, unfiltered. Stars you barely notice on Earth now shine with quiet intensity, each one steady, unwavering, sharp as a pinprick of silver. Some glow faintly red, others pale blue, others soft white. The variety feels soothing, like a distant chorus of tiny lanterns suspended in perfect stillness. Mars's moons add their own touch to the night. Phobos moves quickly, crossing the sky in just a few hours. Sometimes it passes in front of bright stars, creating soft, momentary occultations, brief flickers where a star disappears, then returns. Deimos moves slowly, lingering near the horizon like a forgotten ember. Their presence feels gentle, unobtrusive, like small companions drifting through the vast dark. There is no wind to rustle leaves, no water to lap at shores, no animals to stir. The silence is almost complete. You might hear the faintest whisper of dust shifting, or the almost imaginary hum of distant cooling rock, but mostly you hear your own breath, slow, even, calm. Because the Martian air is so thin, heat escapes the planet quickly. Nights become cold, but the kind of cold that feels clean rather than biting, a cold that clears the mind instead of tightening it. You pull your thoughts inward, soft and slow, letting the sky above you become a quiet ceiling of infinity. Some nights, dust high in the atmosphere can create faint halos around bright stars, adding soft rings of colour, pale blues, gentle whites that glow subtly before fading into the darkness. Other nights, no dust rises at all, and the sky appears almost too perfect, too precise, each star a point of light carved into silence. On Earth, we often forget to look up. But on Mars, the sky demands attention. Not with noise or drama, but with clarity. You feel held by it, grounded by its vastness and its quiet truth. The universe feels closer here, not because the stars are physically near, but because nothing stands between you and their ancient light. As you breathe now, picture this: a sky without twinkle, without haze, without interruption, only steady stars burning softly through the cold, a night that feels endless, peaceful, precise. Let that vision settle into you, sharp and soothing, like a constellation drifting across the quiet surface of your mind. There is something quietly profound about Mars, something that goes beyond rocks and dust, beyond silence and distance. It is a world that waits, not impatiently, not with longing, but with the calm endurance of something that understands time differently. Mars has existed in stillness for billions of years, watching the slow drift of seasons, the gentle passing of moons, the soft settling of dust. It feels no urgency, it simply endures. Imagine Mars as a world sitting in deep meditation. The air is thin, the ground cold, but nothing about it feels hurried. Each sunrise arrives softly, each sunset fades without resistance. Dust storms come and go, shaping nothing too quickly. Change happens at the pace of stone, at the tempo of silence. This waiting is not emptiness. It is presence. A steady, quiet presence that has held its place in the solar system long before humans dreamed of the stars. Mars has watched from afar as Earth grew oceans, forests, civilizations. It remained constant as life bloomed on one world while resting on another. Its stillness is not a void, it is a form of patience. Imagine standing on a ridge overlooking a vast plain. The horizon stretches in a gentle curve, the sky tinted in soft apricot hues. You might feel as though the planet is listening, not to sound but to time itself. Every dune, every crater, every rock seems to whisper the same quiet message. I am here. I have been here. I will be here. A world measured not in years but in ages. Mars does not rush toward the future. It does not cling to its past. It simply waits. Open, steady, enduring the long arc of cosmic time. And in that patience, there is a kind of serenity, a lesson in being present without motion, a reminder that existence does not always require noise or activity. The waiting of Mars is gentle, not the tense anticipation we feel, but a restful kind of waiting, a readiness without expectation. Scientists often wonder whether Mars once hosted life, or whether life might someday come to it from Earth. Perhaps someday humans will build homes on its plains, carve paths into its dust, breathe air created by their own hands. Mars waits for that possibility without hurry, without resistance. Whether it comes tomorrow or in 1,000 years makes no difference to a world so ancient and calm. There is comfort in this, in imagining a world that holds space for us before we ever arrive, a world that offers silence not as isolation but as invitation, a place where exploration can become meditation, where discovery can become reflection. And if life ever existed on Mars, even in the smallest, simplest form, it would have left traces, quiet footprints in minerals, gentle signatures in rock. Mars keeps those traces safe, waiting for patient eyes. It preserves them not through effort, but through stillness. As you breathe now, imagine you're sitting on a stone ledge on Mars, watching the sky dim as Phobos races by. The air cools, the horizon softens, and the planet beneath you feels like a calm presence, steady, grounded, timeless. Let that sense of deep waiting, of gentle endurance settle into your thoughts, a reminder that stillness is not emptiness, and that sometimes the most peaceful places are the ones that wait without wanting. As our gentle journey across Mars comes to its final moments, let yourself drift back through everything we've explored: the soft blue frosts, the ancient riverbeds, the quiet slopes of old volcanoes, the twin moons drifting above, the sharp stars piercing through the thin night air. Mars has shown itself to you not as a cold, distant world, but as a place of stillness, patience, memory. A world shaped by time rather than chaos. A world that breathes slowly. When we began this voyage, we asked a simple question. What does it mean for a world to be quiet, to hold its history not in life or forests or oceans, but in stone and dust? Now, as you settle deeper into rest, the answer feels softer, simpler. Mars holds its stories the way a calm mind holds thoughts, lightly, spaciously, without urgency. Picture the planet now, resting beneath a thin, cool sky. The dunes stretch in gentle curves, unmoving in the twilight. Shadows pour slowly across the land as the sun dips below the horizon, its halo blooming in soft blue flames one last time. Phobos rushes overhead like a small lantern. Deimos lingers far behind, and the world grows still. You walk once more across the red plain. The dust beneath your feet feels like powdered ember. The silence around you widens until it feels like part of your own breathing. Above, the stars sharpen into perfect clarity, each one holding its place in the quiet sky. You feel the calm seep into you, settling into your chest, your shoulders, your hands. A slow, steady settling that feels like falling gently towards sleep. Think of the frost hidden beneath the soil, sleeping through long seasons. Think of the ancient lakes that once filled the basins with soft light. Think of the magnetic memories locked in stone, the dust devils drifting like dancers, the canyons carved with patient time. Mars is a planet of echoes, not loud ones, but soft ones. Echoes of water, echoes of warmth, echoes of possibility. And even now in its long quiet, the planet waits. Not for us specifically, not with expectation, but it waits in the way all still things wait, with openness, with space, with patience. As you picture the red horizon stretching out before you, let your breath slow to match the planet's rhythm. Inhale softly, like the thin air brushing the peaks of dunes. Exhale gently, like dust settling after the passing of a small whirlwind. Feel your body growing heavier, warmer, quieter, mirroring the calm that defines this distant world. Mars teaches us that silence is not emptiness, but presence. That slowness is not stagnation, but peace. That a world can change, cool, fade, and still hold beauty beyond measure. Now slowly you turn away from the horizon. You feel the night deepen around you. You feel the quiet settle into your thoughts like fine dust settling onto old stone, and you let yourself drift down, gently, into rest. Here, as this voyage comes to an end, allow the calm of a whole planet to cradle your mind. Let it soften whatever remains restless. Let it dim whatever feels bright. Let it guide you towards sleep. And as your breathing slows, let the final AstraFlow words carry you into the quiet. Everything flows. Sleep in that motion.